Number 403 defines every person's food without authority of law will be discouraged or rape. Examples of serving a public meeting include but not limited to verbal offers, standing up during the meeting, putting up signs, clicking fingers, and clapping of the hands.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. Tonight is a special board meeting examining the California Healthy Youth Act, also known and referred to as CHIA. The trustees of Orange County Board of Education voted in favor of holding a special forum for our Orange County community to have an opportunity to fully devote dedicated time to the various complex issues surrounding the implementation of the California Healthy Youth Act, or Assembly Bill 329. California Education Code 5193 gives guidelines on implementation of sex education programs and states all, in quotes, instruction and materials are age appropriate, factually and medically correct and objective, end quote. As such, the purpose of holding this special forum is to invite experts to provide testimony, epic data, and related legal and scholarly information to shed light on the proper and legal implementation of CHIA. In addition, the purpose and board-approved mission statement of this forum is to accomplish the following. Educate parents and community members about changes and mandates regarding comprehensive sexual education in public schools. Educate parents and community members about their parental choices in regards to student participation. Review state-approved adopted curriculum for primary, middle school, and high school sexual health education. Provide Orange County School Districts with information, and finally, to answer questions and concerns of constituents.
America is great because we can assemble together as a community in forums like tonight and discuss controversial and complex issues. Free speech and free moral agency defines America and gives us our liberties and freedoms. Many false, misleading, and hateful words have been said by many on all sides of the CHIA issue at our previous board meeting. The board has been falsely and incorrectly accused of being bigoted, or using statements as such, or that we have created an environment of bigotry, discrimination, and stupidity. We've also been accused that we're against implementation. All rules are not true. These things that we said against the board are not honest, and they're untruthful and not accurate. Laws are passed in Sacramento, Washington, D.C. that when implemented at a local level are not always easy to realize. Thus we gather tonight to hear viewpoints and perspectives from prominent and experts on controversial matters. In light of the past negative inflammatory words that have been spoken, I pray for restoration of relationships of our community and people. I pray
Amen.
for peace and forbearance and the understanding of reconciliation, giving grace,
Amen.
giving charity, and forgiving others. This event has been the planning stage for over 2 months. Our board's goals are to discuss topics and discussion that is supported by scholarly, academic, scientific information with medical evidence and facts. We will not allow demonization at home and accounts, and incivility will not be tolerated. Discussion will be apolitical, non-ideological, and without any religious language or proselytization. Topics must focus on the goal of how the best service is given to the medical, psychological health needs of the children we serve. As background information for our guests in the audience, this evening's event was proposed to be neutral with a number of experts from differing perspectives on CHIA. Unfortunately, such board intention did not occur as originally desired when this meeting was proposed in July. It was envisioned that there would be 4 seats from each side of the CHIA meeting that would be sitting here before us, occupied by 8 experts who only differed on their viewpoint on public policy and governance. For the record, there were over 13 professionals or experts that were requested to participate in this forum, but all declined and recently reversed their decision to participate as experts for one reason or another. Nonetheless, the executive committee in the last 2 days, the last days leading up to this event, was able to add 2 experts on issues that are central to CHIA. These experts will convey the message and opinion how to create safe schools through anti-bullying strategies. And most importantly, the value of inclusiveness of all people, regardless of their ethnicity, gender, religious faith, sexual orientation, or color of their skin. The board received yesterday a letter from the Anti-Defamation League, essentially outlining the need for greater civility and less inflammatory words. While no government agency can control the free speech that will come into public comments, the board requests that all speakers show deference, respect, and charity for their fellow Americans. Thank you again for coming to this meeting. We deeply covet a civil discourse in this public forum. Now, at this point in our agenda, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Good Trustee Barkey from the Oakland School District, and then the subsequent invocation by Patrick.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Please stand, place your right hand over your heart, and honor the greatest symbol of liberty this world has ever known. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. How you doing, sir?
Dr. Oliver, you lead us in the invocation.
I'm standing for that. Please.
Good afternoon, good evening. Bishop Bill Oliver from Great Life Family Church. Just wanted to thank God for this opportunity to do the invocation. Amen. Inviting someone or something or an authority in this place tonight. With that, let's bow our heads. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Lord, tonight we lift up parents, we lift up children, we lift up the schools, the educational system, Lord God. We lift up everyone here tonight. We pray that you'll sanctify us in your truth. Your word is truth.
Yes.
And so, Lord, we invite you into this house, into our hearts and our minds. We invite you into this place, Lord God. Open up the ears that we may hear what thus says the Lord. We thank you for this opportunity to come together. And Lord, we pray for peace. Without you, there is no peace.
Amen.
We pray for peace that will surpass all understanding, that will guard our hearts and our minds tonight, Father. We pray for unity. We pray for love, Lord God.
Amen.
We pray for the youth, oh Heavenly Father. We thank you now, Lord God. Thank you for everyone who is here. There's some great people here, great names, people with great accolades, but I come in the name that is above every name. And so, Lord, I thank you for allowing us to be here in the mighty name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Thank you, Lord.
Amen. All right.
Because you are for us, who can
Be against us.
At the name of Jesus, that name that is above every name. Every knee shall bow, every tongue will confess. That he is Lord. Lord, have your way with us tonight. In the name of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, let all of God's children say amen.
Amen.
Too blessed to be stressed.
Amen. That's it. There we go. Wow. There we go. That's better. That's where it starts. You bring back God, everything else falls into place.
We will begin with public comments. The public comments will be limited for the first 30 minutes of this meeting to, I believe it was 14 individuals whose cards will be drawn, or have been drawn already. And our board secretary will give out the names of those individuals. Again, before we turn over the meeting to our good friend and colleague, Mamie Chidester, we will have public comments for about 30 minutes. 2-minute limitation. And then we'll have public comments, by the way, at the end of the meeting also. So,
Amen.
opportunity for all who want to speak. Okay.
All right.
For the record, the names have not been drawn. Wanted to do it with full audience and everyone present, so I am drawing 1, 2, 3, speaker, I'll call 2 names, and if the first person will come to the podium, second person, if you just make your way so that you can line up to the wall, we can try to expedite some of this. Bartlett will be first up, followed by Stephanie Yates.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I don't have anything prepared other than what's on my heart. I know that this is a very complicated, very difficult, very divisive issue that we're dealing with. What I would like to ask everybody to do, both behind the podium there, and all of you folks, and everybody that's watching on TV, wherever you are, is to respect one another and to work toward a resolution to a very, very difficult problem. Probably the most difficult problem we've all ever had to deal with. I think the only other problem would be the homeless problem. Just incredible difficulties, incredible challenges. And so tonight, my main concern is our children. We want to make sure that our children are taught the truth. And we want to make sure that they are not in any way confused, that they're not in any way, they're not, health and safety is not jeopardized. And we want to make sure that we're fair. We want to make sure that we're fair no matter what people's beliefs are. Because this is a free country.
Amen.
Everybody here is free to live the lifestyle they want, to believe what they want, and we're all different. That's what America's all about. It's always has been. And so my message to all of you tonight is to consider other people's concerns
Speaking to
and
the
to
microphone.
look.
Speak to the mic.
Speaking to the microphone.
Oh, my message to you tonight is to listen to other people's concerns, to respect them, to share what you and they can come up with solutions that, again, will benefit our children. This is not about you, it's not about me, it's not about this board. It's about our children. It's about children who are 5 years old, 7 years old, 11 years old. What does that mean? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
For having this, I'm grateful. That actually my first time I stand on where my tax money is going, so I'm very grateful for that. The law states that this is mandatory once in junior high, once in high school. However, if they choose to teach it in any other grade, they can K through 12. Fremont, California starts at 4th grade. Oceanside, 6th. Actually, they can start at K. And San Diego County starts at 5th grade. I'm going to read straight from the curriculum. Rights, respect, responsibility, K through 12 curriculum. While we use terms male and female when referring to particular anatomy, it is important to remember that someone can have a penis even if they don't identify as a boy, or a vulva even if they don't identify as a girl. More inclusive words such as person with a penis or person with vulva can also be used if you are comfortable with these terms. K through 12, straight from the curriculum.
Holy crap.
Making proud choices. What are some of the ways you can increase spontaneity and pleasure of condom use? Make sure you have condoms available before you get romantic. Eroticize condom use with partner, make it sexy. It goes on. Another one from positive rights, respect, responsibility, K through 12. Tell students that there is another barrier method that you can protect against STIs during oral sex on a vulva or a rectum of another partner. Tell students that dental downs are flavored
What?
because they are designed specifically for safer
Show it
oral
over here,
sex.
please. Oh my God.
Let me, scrambled eggs is what they refer to birth control. Oral sex, vaginal sex, anal sex, teen talk, those were both teen talk. Anatomy, what they're showing in anatomy,
What?
what they're showing in anatomy.
Show it slowly.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
And anatomy.
Okay.
Followed by Michelle New.
And for which age group? That's for kindergartners? Kindergartners?
everyone to visit
You're out
the
of order.
website.
Mr. Sheriff, you remove this
CSA.org.
individual for breaking Penal Code 403. Please remove him at this time.
Okay, I want everyone to visit stopcsc.org. And what you need to understand that the California Health Youth Act is only a
Are you Mr.
gateway
Lawson?
legislation and political cover.
Are you Mr.
And
Lawson?
it really doesn't matter what it says in SB 324. Please visit the website, stopcsc.org. That's Charlie Sierra Echo. Robert Ruffin.
Well, that's him.
Okay, please don't remove him for speaking.
Okay, so keep it staying.
Okay, thank you.
Start his time over.
But signs are okay as long as they don't block the meeting.
Start his time over.
Start his time over.
Okay, you know, in the word, in all legislation, requires a gateway legislation. And that's what SB 324, California Youth Act is. It provides a political cover so that in your classroom, starting in the 4th grade, that they can take on the United Nations War on Children.
Yep.
And that information is there's 11-minute video at stopcsc.org. That's Charlie Sierra Echo. In the War on Children is simply the United Nations gateway legislation is simply innocent, benign, harmless sounding California Health Youth Act. There is mounting evidence that clearly shows that United Nations Comprehensive Sex Education, CSE, is one of the most insidious attacks on the health and innocence of our children.
Yeah.
And I'd like everyone to visit stopcsc.org, the website, and view the 11-minute video. That's stopcharliesierraecho.org. Thank you.
Michelle New, followed by Kathy Winter, or Winter.
Hi, thanks for hearing me speak again tonight. I'd like to just point out, I'm not here to dispute the law. I'm here to dispute the curriculum that actually breaks the law. The law under Section 2, 51930B, says, to ensure pupils receive integrated, comprehensive, accurate, and unbiased sexual health and HIV. However, the curriculum is not unbiased, and it is not supported scientifically, medically, or sociological consequences also are put upon our children. I want to tell you the one page that it has on abstinence. This is in Flash, and here's how they teach abstinence. I can't believe that you haven't had sex yet, Brooklyn. I don't know why you're waiting. You should just do it. You better rethink that before she finds someone else. Abstinence, number 9 lesson. This is what is our abstinence teaching. And be real, be ready. Again, I know we're supposed to teach, we have a gender, not just male, not just female. However, we're not supposed to, and we don't need to by the law, to teach how to use condoms and dental dams. This is Be Real, Be Ready in lesson 19. We also have condom relay races. We pass out gloves, enough for every student. The teacher gets to demonstrate along with the students. Again, because people are saying we don't know what we're talking about. This is lesson 19. I'm going to skip this because I'm running out of time. This is very offensive, and I apologize right now. My penis is too big for condoms. I don't know how to use a dental dam. This is what the key notes for the teacher to say to her students. Lesson 19, Be Real, Be Ready. This is one of the PowerPoints actually being used in Garden Grove and a little bit in Anaheim, and there's some other districts in Orange County. This one is wetter makes it better. Again, lube, vaginal, and anal, demonstrating and explaining this to our children. It also demonstrates if you don't have anything, you can use vegetables. Again, real quick, in Positive Prevention Plus, some of the stuff has masturbation videos. Thank you.
Michelle, can you show it to me? Really quick?
Good evening. My name is Kathy, and I've been HIV positive for 22 years. I teach HIV prevention through AIDS Service Foundation, which is now called Radiant, and the Red Cross. Teen Talk is considered the most compliant curriculum with AB 329. I have reviewed the curriculum and believe the misinformation places young females, especially in harm's way of HIV. Page 101 of Teen Talk states, anal sex is unlikely to cause pregnancy. Anal sex is being presented as a way to decrease the likelihood of pregnancy. This teaching greatly empowers boys who are pressuring young girls to have sex, especially girls who are insecure and low in confidence. Anal sex places girls at the highest risk for HIV. Why? CDC 2016 says being a receptive partner during anal sex is the highest sexual activity for getting HIV.
Oh, Lord.
That's the CDC. Females can only be receptive partners in anal sex, putting them automatically at higher risk for HIV. However, Teen Talk diminishes this fact on page 167 when it says vaginal and anal sex are both low-risk behaviors for HIV when a condom is used. That's simply not true. CDC in 2013 says HIV is at least 10 times more easily transmitted via anal than vaginal sex, and condoms may be more likely to fail during anal sex. This highly approved state curriculum does not state this important fact that puts females at the highest risk for HIV when using anal sex to reduce the risk of pregnancy. Teen Talk says that HIV is not a death sentence, and that with daily drug therapy, people can lead a normal life. This is true. However, they fail to tell the facts of what it really looks like.
Yep.
Your time is up. I don't want our children to put at risk because of lack of education.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Form here. Can you announce the next
I
speaker?
called Angie Cohen, last call, and Janet Tang.
Please state your name and you go to the podium and address us.
Good evening, my name is Angie Cohen. I have two children at the Placentia and Yorba Linda Unified School District. I'm here to speak out against the California sexual education, which now apparently includes sexual orientation and how to have safe sex. Clinical psychologists have spoken out against this for abstract concepts and critical analytical implementation due to the lack of intellectual capability our children have to grasp abstract concepts such as at an early age. In 2014, Dr. Megan Kochnick, a clinical psychologist, emphasized how children's brains are not developed the same as adult brains. The human brain keeps developing until adulthood and even onwards. She further stated that children are focused on how things look cognitively and are unable to grasp abstract concepts. She also stated that you can train a second grader to answer abstract questions, but you have not really changed the internal process of understanding abstraction. You have trained them to answer abstractions. Dr. Mary Kalemia, a clinical psychotherapist in New York, has stated, and also in 2014, that you cannot regulate biology. Young children cannot engage in the type of critical thinking that is called for. That would require a fully developed prefrontal cortex, a part of the brain that is not fully functional until adulthood. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for critical thinking, rational decision-making, and abstract thoughts, all things that this curriculum is calling for. Not only are you confusing and creating unnecessary stress onto our young children, but by
By injecting these highly mature concepts into our children's minds, you are making our children grow up at a much more rapid pace than they naturally ought to be maturing.
Right.
These are extremely difficult issues that are to be explored and discussed at the college level when our children are reaching adulthood and the prefrontal cortex can begin to grapple these tough abstract things. Thank you.
Rebecca Frederick.
Good evening. My name is Janet Chang, and I'm a parent residing in Orange County. I have 3 children who are in 6th grade, 5th grade, and 2nd grade, all in Placentia Yorba Unified District. Within the last 2 months, I have been hearing a lot about what's called Comprehensive Sexuality Education, or CSE, and how many school districts in California have already either adopted or will be adopting this harmful health ed program by the end of the school year for K through 12. I had the opportunity to actually look through some of the curriculum that is based on CSE, and I was mortified to say the least. One of the CSE curriculum called Rights, Respect, and Responsibility, written by Advocates for Youth, offers a lesson plan titled Using Condoms Effectively. This particular lesson plan instructs a teacher to do the following, and I quote, "Tell students that there is one barrier method that can protect against STIs during oral sex on a vulva or rectum of another partner. Take out the dental dam from the birth control kit and take it out of the package. Hold one in your hands to form an O, and place the dental dam over this hand, and explain to student that this represents placing the dental dam being placed over a vulva or rectum. Tell students that dental dam are flavored because they are designed specifically for safer oral sex," unquote. I hope you are disgusted and horrified by what you just heard. And to think that this lesson plan is geared towards students K through 12 is simply appalling.
Unbelievable.
This is merely one example of hundreds of other age-inappropriate lesson plans that our children are being exposed to in our public schools here in California, all under the name of health education. CSE can be presented as different names. They are masked under benign names such as Rights, Respect, and Responsibility, Teen Talk, Health Connected, Advocates for Youth, Making Proud Choices, Apex, and more. Comprehensive sexuality education is harmful not only to our children, but to our society as a whole. We as parents and community members of Orange County are here today to say we are 100% against any curricula under CSE. CSE sexualizes children, teaches children to give and receive consent for sex, promotes early sexual independence, and undermines and violates parental rights.
That's an
Thank
open
you.
door to pedophilia. There's Rebecca. This is Rebecca Friedrichs. She's the champion who fought the teachers' unions. She fought the teachers' unions.
By Donna Schoenberger.
Good evening. I'm Rebecca Friedrichs, a 28-year public school teacher in Orange County, California. I'm here this evening on behalf of thousands of teachers and parents who are extremely concerned about the new sex ed curriculums. Our teachers are being told to present lessons in which we have to tell our students to touch fully erect penis models, to use dental dams for oral to anal sex, and to play games like the condom relay races, all in mixed company. We are also told to instruct children on how and where to access birth control, including abortion, without parental knowledge or parental permission from age 12. Teachers are required to protect children from sexually inappropriate information and ideas. My fellow teacher friends and I desire to protect childhood innocence, childhood health, and to support parental rights.
Yes.
Unfortunately, our voices have been drowned out by state and national teachers' unions, claiming to represent us. They do not. We teachers thank you for this opportunity to share our true concerns and our great desire to protect our students and to serve them and their parents. Thank you.
We really finally need to get through the meeting, so if you have to clap, please make it short. Otherwise, if it continues.
We'll be here all
the rest
night.
of The board will leave, until it does stop. So I don't want to be a cop, although I'm a sheriff deputy reserve. I got to run this meeting, and I really need you guys to be helping me, okay? So next up is Donna Schulter.
Correct, followed by Nathan Matza.
Hello, my name is Donna Schomburger. I am a mother of 3 children who attend school in the public school system. I have a 17-year-old, 8-year-old, and a 6-year-old. This greatly impacts my children in the respect of taking away my parental rights and my ability to teach my children what I want to teach them, when I want to teach them, what if I will ever teach them these certain things. After hearing the things out there, I was in the overflow of what is being told to young adults, young children, little kids. It is appalling. And every one of you sitting in those beautiful chairs with all of that lavishness really needs to understand that if these were your children, would you want them talking about anal sex? Would you want them explaining all these different types of things? It is just so perverse. Where have we gone? I just don't understand. It's not okay, and I am standing up for my right as a parent, and I am a Christian, and I believe in a male and a female. I believe in the original family unit that God created.
Yes.
That's what I believe in. That's what I stand for, and I will not tolerate this anymore, infringing on my parental rights. It is not okay. And all of you have a duty and a decision to make, and I really want you to support parents that have the right to choose what they tell their children. I don't want the school district telling my children things, or the teacher being forced to say things that are against their personal beliefs.
Yep.
Let's really think about this, okay? Let's really, really think about this. It's very, very important. It's not about hate. I don't hate anybody, nor do my children. So, you know, people got it wrong, and when they say we hate them, we don't hate them. We stand up for the parental rights.
Yes.
Okay, and that is what I'm standing up for. That's the bottom line. I brought my 2 children here. Am I finished?
You're finished.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Donna. This guy was a teacher at Cal State Long Beach, and he teaches perverse stuff to college kids. Let's see what he has to say. It's at Cal State Long Beach. Let's see what he has to say.
Members of the board, my name is Nathan Matza, and I've been a parent and health educator for 49 years in Orange and LA County, and I have taught thousands of youth about human sexuality, drug abuse, nutrition, and suicide prevention. California Healthy Youth Act mandates that schools address comprehensive sexuality education since January of 2016. Excuse me, with an emphasis on protecting kids. The new law requires not only a focus on human reproduction, but now includes instruction on all genders, LGBTQ people, prevention of HIV, and lessons on child abuse protection. Additionally, sex trafficking and discussions including abstinence and birth control are mandated to prevent our youth from contracting STIs, avoiding pregnancy, and developing a positive attitude about a healthy life as adults. Lessons must be medically accurate sources, and no place in Ed Code 51930 to 39 are there any requirements about sex toys or how to access explicit porn sites on the internet. If any parent has reservations about these topics, the law allows them to simply excuse their children by notifying the school principal, and California now leads the nation with this new legislation, and I implore you to support all schools, teachers, and parents in implementing this unique and special law for all of our kids. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next up is Mr. Carl Gutierrez.
Followed by Hillary Meyer.
He's a hack with the government. He's from Cal State Long Beach. Big money.
Good evening, members of the board and community. My name is Reverend Carl. I am a youth pastor here in Costa Mesa. I have been researching gender identity and sexual orientation instruction coming into schools due to the new laws. I have been reading the new California Health Framework, which is the blueprint to the publishers for the curriculum. If the California District of Education adopt this 2019 framework, this is what our children will be taught, and apparently it is already in our curriculum. Definitions for CDE. Gender identity refers to being male, female, neither, both, or either genders, and many others, and may not consider with the individual sex assigned at birth, Chapter 6, page 32. Students may not conform to male or female. For the example, gender non-binary, gender non-conforming, gender queer, gender fluid, etc. Chapter 6, page 32. Sexual orientation definitions. The usage of LGBTQ+ throughout the framework is intended to refer to inclusiveness and ever-changing spectrum and understanding of identity. Historically, the acronym includes lesbian, gay, and bisexual, but has continued to expand, including queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, alliance, and assorted identities, as well as expanding comprehension or and ever expanding, that it may fall under this umbrella term in the future. Chapter 5, page 21.
Thank you, Mr. Pastor P.
Good evening, board members. Thank you so much for the chance to speak for a minute. I am a parent of 5 children, a middle school daughter and a son in 6th grade and 3 younger daughters all in elementary school in Orange County schools here. And I just wanted to get up and with regards to this whole conversation, I want to express my appreciation for all the effort everyone on the board has put into researching and becoming more informed about the California Healthy Youth Act and the options available as far as curriculum go. And I can see, by the concerns of the parents and others in the community, that there are a lot of concerns about the curricula options that are options to the districts at this point. And so I think that's a real concern to be looked at and more closely. But I would also encourage, as we're considering our youth in the community, to, as I've reached out to other groups of different beliefs and backgrounds and different orientations, it's just a reminder to me that we need to also have care and sensitivity in how we approach this, that we need to remember that the goal is improved sex education for our youth as a whole, for all youth, and just also approach it in a way that we can be more unified and that it doesn't have to be such a divisive issue with hurtful things said on one side and then hurtful things said on either side, but that it can be a respect for one another, for everyone's backgrounds, identities, orientations, religions, that we can find a place that we can agree on, especially with respect to educating our kids better about risk avoidance, about sexual risk avoidance. And so I would just encourage this to be considered as we're having these conversations, and I thank you for the time to speak.
This is delusional. We've been kind all this time. It's not working.
Mr. Neal is Genevieve Peters.
Thank you. My name is Russell Neal. I live in Huntington Beach. The U.S. Supreme Court has made it clear in its non-establishment of religion rulings that just as states are not free to create an establishment of religion by favoring any particular religion, neither are they free to create an establishment of anti-religion.
Yes.
By singling out religious belief for disfavored or hostile treatment. This was most recently affirmed in the Masterpiece Cake ruling. AB 329, the California Healthy Youth Act, openly flouts this principle of law by requiring favorable treatment of sexual practices offensive to most religions and by specifically prohibiting mention of any religious doctrine. The law treats human beings as subhuman, as a system of biological plumbing, rather than as children of God having a soul as well as a body. This is not state neutrality with respect to religion, it is state hostility to the moral teachings of Christianity and most other religions. When people say school boards must follow the law, meaning AB 329, do they also mean that boards must do so even if it violates the Constitution they have sworn to uphold? I
That's
think
right.
not. I support efforts to develop and use curricula that is as family-friendly as possible while still complying with AB 329. But I also ask this board and every school board in Orange County to protest the unconstitutional anti-religious bias of this legislation, and if necessary, sue in state and federal courts.
Yes.
Thank you for your consideration.
Your last name?
Peters.
Peter, thank you.
Genevieve Peters. Thank you so much for this opportunity for us to come here and share our deep, deep concerns. First and foremost, Sacramento is out of control. It is out of control because it seems to think that it can indoctrinate our children with their leftist agenda. We as parents are not victims. We are part of we the people. We the people can decide what we teach our kids when it comes to sex, when it comes to relationships. It is not the job of the Board of Education. Their job, and let me tell you they're not doing a very good job of it, is reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Yeah.
Let them get that first. And unfortunately, they don't even know how to do that. So, don't tell me that we're talking about not being fair to people. Let's be fair to our children and teach them what they need to know to be able to survive and thrive in our country.
Yes.
This is an indoctrination of a gay agenda that has no place in our schools. If you choose that lifestyle, it is your business, not my children. Not the children of the school. Your business. And keep it that way. Do not
Please.
try and make it normal, because
Don't
we
shove it down
might
our
not
throats.
agree with that lifestyle, but we can still love you as a human being.
Yep.
So, when you bring it into our schools, now you've got the parents
Yep.
up in arms. Thank you.
Amen.
So at this time, what we're going to do is we're going to make a transition to have a moderator, so I can be a part of the process here, running a meeting, we're going to. So we've asked our good friend.
It's busy in there, I'll tell you. I gotta put another draft card. Hello?
Have you spoken?
Not yet, no.
Okay, you can only speak once, so yeah, there's one. Did you already fill one in?
Okay, I lost it. So I'll just put my name.
Yeah, just put your name.
Is there a chance for me to speak?
Yeah, at the end of the meeting, they're gonna pull the rest of the cards.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're the clerk? You're a staffer.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
At the end of the meeting.
Yes.
I'm losing weight here. I can barely keep my pants on.
14 in the beginning, and then
Okay, thank you. Remember, you're not recording, right?
I am recording.
Can you please turn off?
Okay, let me do this in for a sec. What's up?
Is much appreciated. We thank you in advance to allow our extras this evening an opportunity to share their expertise with you. Dr. Williams reminded us all of the penal code at section 4.3. I also would like to remind you that the Ralph M. Brown Act and the California Government Code, should disorder disrupt the meeting, does allow for the removal of individuals and even for the meeting to be adjourned.
Yeah.
We certainly hope that won't be necessary this evening. California Education Code Section 51933 is established state law on implementation of comprehensive sexual health education and HIV programs. It does require that instruction and materials be age appropriate. It also requires that information be factually and medically accurate and objective. So again, the purpose of the forum this evening is to invite our experts who have been waiting patiently. You will kindly allow them me to introduce them to you at this time. I'd like to welcome, starting at this end of the dais, Stan Reed, PhD. Dr. Reed will present his research data on aspects of comprehensive sex education programs. His primary professional and research expertise is on adolescent social problems and preventive programs, including teen pregnancy, drug abuse, and delinquency. Dr. Reed completed his PhD in 1978 at the University of Washington in social psychology. He has published research in a number of scholarly and professional journals. He is a consultant to the United States Senate Committees on Labor and Human Resources and as a consultant to adolescent pregnancy programs in the Department of Health and Human Services. His research on current social policies has been published in the popular press, including the Wall Street Journal and Time Magazine, among others. Dr. Reed has been invited to present his research and findings in Washington, D.C. at the White House, the Senate Committee on Labor and Human Resources, and the House Committee on Health and Transportation, among others. He is a founder and currently director and CEO of the Institute of Research and Evaluation. Welcome, Dr. Reed. Allow me to introduce Deborah Reisdorf, I beg your pardon. An attorney. Ms. Reisdorf will speak on anti-bullying programs to create a safe school environment for all children. As an attorney, she is an established expert in anti-bullying. She was the founder and president of Bullying Awareness Resistance Education, a local nonprofit. And that organization received the Orange County Department of Education Outstanding Contributions in Education Award in March 2013. Ms. Reisdorf earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from Mid-America Nazarene University, her law degree from Washburn School of Law. She has 25 years of experience and training as a sexual harassment attorney and is licensed to practice law in California and New York, as well as before the Supreme Court. She raised her 3 adult children in Huntington Beach schools and now has 2 grandchildren in school. She's the author of publications for administrators and parents on overcoming bullying. Welcome. Ms. Neda Higuera. Also an attorney, focuses on the legal aspects of CHYA and constitutional rights of parents. She is a civil rights attorney with the law firm of Tyler and Birch. Her primary focus is on constitutional and parental rights aspects of CHIA. Her expertise in litigation and appeal courts on constitutional and related issues, and her writing has been quoted by the United States Supreme Court in a recent opinion. She attended the University of Pacific McGeorge School of Law and was staff editor of Global Business and Development Law Journal. She's a first-generation Palestinian American, the youngest of 8 daughters. Welcome. Ms. Brenda Lesbeck.
And this is the one who told me not to come.
Brenda's testimony will focus on specific and general facts of CHIA state-recommended curriculums based upon her service as an elected local community leader and a public school teacher for 22 years. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Human Services from Cal State Fullerton, a teaching credential, a Master's in Special Education, and an adaptive PE authorization. She also holds a Bachelor of Theology from Pacific Bible College. She's taught alternative education, elementary education, middle school, and high school special education, coaches soccer and field hockey, was a peace officer for the Orange County Probation Department, and facilitated and co-wrote an AIDS prevention curriculum for the department in the 1980s. She was elected as a school trustee for Orange Unified School District in November of 2016. Welcome. Dr. Laura Haynes, who holds both a PhD and a Juris Doctor. Her,
No, I don't have a JD.
oh, I do apologize. We gave you an honorary. Very good, then I stand corrected. Dr. Haynes holds a PhD. Her testimony tonight will focus on the topic of sexual orientation, gender, and family life as required by CHIA. She's given expert testimony before legislative committees in multiple states and has a good handle on the subject matter. She's a licensed psychologist, recently retired from her clinical practice with over 40 years' experience. Currently, she is an author and reviewer for peer journals. She's a speaker and political activist. She serves as a consultant for the American College of Pediatricians and is a member of the research committee for the Alliance for Therapeutic Choice and Scientific Integrity. Welcome. Ms. Dula, welcome. Is a special guest of the board this evening with expertise on the topic of inclusivity. She is Scottish by birth, Syrian heritage, a refugee by the age of 5. She is Saudi by her primary education, Muslim by faith, and American by home. In addition to her training with Cornell University's Diversity and Inclusion Program, Dula earned her master's degree from Chapman University, focusing on the role of film in promoting and also dispelling stereotypes. She's a consultant and trainer, a content developer, in cultural competency and curriculum support. She's one of 9 representatives elected by her Southern California Muslim community to the board of the Shura Council of Southern California. Welcome. We will begin our program tonight, and we have a great deal of expertise at the table, but we've allotted 7 minutes. So we appreciate your quiet and listening as we turn the panel over to Dr. Lee for his opening remarks.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I commend the board for calling for a rational, objective review of the sex education strategies designed for school-aged children. The negative consequences of early sexual activity continue to cause significant health and social problems in our society. Here in California, there's been a 45% increase in STDs since 2013. And half of the cases occur with youth between 15 and 25 years of age. Teen pregnancy continues as a blight among many high-risk populations, leading to lower education, higher poverty, and higher crime, and a self-perpetuating vicious cycle. With problems this severe, we need to be sure that the solutions we employ are effective. There's a philosopher that I like by the name of Mencken who said, for every complex problem, there is a solution that is clear, simple, and wrong.
Sounds like Sacramento.
Considering different types of solutions, the debate often degrades to an argument pitting one ideology against another.
Yep.
A better approach, which I think you are attempting to employ here in your board, is to move from ideology to evidence. Even with that approach, there are pitfalls. One of the most common is to select evidence that supports a predetermined conclusion rather than looking at all of the evidence to see what patterns emerge from the data. In other words, to cherry pick the research.
Right.
A second pitfall is to use studies of inadequate scientific quality. We've taken steps to avoid these 2 pitfalls by going to some credible sources to identify the best research available where studies have been objectively reviewed and screened for methodological rigor. These sources include 2 sponsored by the U.S. federal government, the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Evidence Review, and secondly, a meta-analysis study supported by the Centers for Disease Control. And then another review conducted for the United Nations. And these reviews have screened several hundred sex education studies for research quality, and then reported results for the studies of adequate scientific rigor. For today's discussion, we will focus on the 60 studies of U.S. school-based comprehensive sex education, or CSE, which met these 3 agency standards for inclusion. We targeted CSE programs because that is the type of sex education recommended by many public health advocates. We focused on school-based programs because the school is the venue where most adolescents receive some form of sex education and tends to be the focus of the public policy debate, a debate that occurs in forums such as this school board hearing today. Distinguishing between programs in schools versus other settings is important, since methods that may work in a clinic setting with individuals and their counselors may not be effective in a school classroom setting. Another problem with the scientific approach is that the inappropriate standards or definitions of effectiveness are often used to evaluate program outcomes in an effort to lower the bar and make it easier to claim program success. Such reviews often assert that one minor short-term positive effect is sufficient to say that a program is effective. A major feature of our review, which sets it apart from others, is that we have turned to the field of prevention research to define what it means for a program to be effective. Based on the work of organizations like the Society for Prevention Research and Blueprints for Healthy Youth Development, and our more than 25 years of experience evaluating school-based sex education programs, we identify 5 key criteria for evidence of program effectiveness. Meeting these credible and recommended standards establishes sufficient empirical grounds for evidence of program effectiveness. And specifically, our review looked for positive program effects on the following: on at least one key predictive indicator, and these are delay of sexual initiation, increased condom use, specifically and especially consistent condom use, decreased pregnancies, or decreased STD rates. Those are the criteria. The effects should be sustained at least 12 months after the end of the program, so as to endure from one school year to the next. They should be found for the main youth population, not just a subgroup. There should not be other negative side effects, and the evidence should include all credible studies of the program, particularly studies by independent evaluators, not just studies by the program's developers. Those are the criteria. With these methods and outcome standards in place, we analyzed the results of the 60 studies of 40 school-based CSE programs in the U.S. We examined each of these studies individually rather than relying on a review of the studies by others, and found that in spite of the widespread claim that CSE programs are effective or evidence-based, one, none of the school-based CSE programs demonstrated reductions in teen pregnancy beyond the end of the program, and none reduced STDs.
Wow.
Few programs even measured these outcomes and still claim that they're effective. One school-based program was actually found to have increased teen pregnancy.
Why
Number
not?
2,
Cover up, right?
there was no evidence of school-based CSE effectiveness at producing sustained increases in consistent condom use by teens. Consistent use is necessary to provide sufficient protection from STDs. One program reported a sustained effect in a study by its developer, but a subsequent study by an independent evaluator did not confirm that effect and actually found harmful impacts. The program increased sexual risk behaviors. Although there were 3 studies of 2 school-based CSE programs that reported delayed sexual initiation 12 months after the program and for the intended population, evidence from multiple replication studies did not confirm these initial positive results produced by the program developers. Only 2 programs increased frequency, this is out of 40 now, keep in mind. Only 2 programs increased frequency of teen condom use, but not consistent use, 12 months after the program, without other negative effects. In one study, and each of these were by the program's developers. No replication studies have been done to confirm these results. There was no evidence of effectiveness for CSC's purported dual benefit. No increases in both teen abstinence and condom use by sexually active teens within the same program and teen population 12 months after the program. Of significant concern, 6 studies of 5 school-based CSE programs found serious harmful effects. 3 programs increased rates of teen sex, 1 increased teen pregnancy, 1 increased number of sex partners, and 1 reduced contraceptive use. Thus, applying meaningful standards of effectiveness, standards that have scientific validity and practical utility for policymakers and parents, we see far more evidence of failure than success and a concerning number of harmful impacts. The full report can be found on the website.
Thank you, Dr.
Please share with us your website.
The website, institute-research.com.
Simple enough.
Thank you, Dr. Now we will hear from Liz Residor.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, honorable board members, and Dr. Maharis. I applaud the board and Dr. Williams for these efforts to organize and host this important event. And I also want to recognize the hard work of all the OCDE administration, professionals, staff, and teachers across our county that are doing work every day to help our children reach their highest potential. But moving forward to my topic on this panel, it's important for you to understand 3 presuppositions. Bullying hurts and leaves scars. Number 2, there is a solution, and research shows that the most effective programs include teaching relational leadership and building solidarity. And 3rd, there are specific elements that should be in every program, teaching empathy and mindful behavior. So this brief presentation will help you understand the problem, the solution, and those specifics needed to manage and eventually eliminate bullying from our schools. You see, what we do today impacts our world tomorrow. I have a story. A 90-year-old veteran has a story. A successful businessman has a story. A young girl who never told her story in middle school but is now telling her story. A popular cheerleader has a story. A young brother has a story. A young boy who took a doll to show and tell. He has a story.
You know what? And I have a story.
Bullying is not a respecter of persons. It impacts people of all races, all income, and all ages. Do you have a story? Bullying hurts and it leaves scars. And scientifically, bullying is aggressive behavior intended to intimidate or mistreat a perceived weaker person. Bullying involves an imbalance of power, an intentional act of intimidation and mistreatment, and it is persistent. Bullying behaviors fall in that spectrum from taunting to mean words to sexual harassment and ultimately to assault and battery. The most recent finding published of the National Center for Education Statistics reveals that more than 1 out of every 5 students reported being bullied after that particular survey. 20.8%, 1 out of 5. These national statistics are reflected in our own schools, and you can confirm that information in the California Healthy Kids Survey reports. Each district has a report, and there's significant information in these reports that can help us in the OC. Within the past few years, Santa Ana Unified School District has improved how the students view the school environment and has decreased reports of bullying. In other districts, the stats on bullying behaviors, well, they go up and down, as you'll see in the surveys, and they remain within the national norms. You want to know more? Review Dr. Michael G. Thompson, a renowned child psychologist, speaker, and author, his book, Raising Cain, Protecting the Emotional Life of Boys. Now, if a child falls and scrapes their knee, we stop and we fix the injury. Yet, when a child has an emotional injury, what do? If we do nothing, infections of the mind happen. Canadian psychologist, best-selling author, Dr. Guy Winch describes the importance of emotional first aid in his book by that title. His studies show that rejection is the most painful of emotional injuries. Isolation from and by students common in bullying is rejection, and it leaves a lifetime scar. Research shows that when a bully when a peer stands up for a target, the conduct tends to stop within 10 seconds. Yet, even though it makes such a huge difference, students are fearful of standing up against a bully. Why? They don't want to be bullied too. They're afraid they'll be ostracized, or nothing will reported. The reality is that reporting an incident of bullying does not ensure that it won't happen again in our schools. Parents have reported, students have reported, yet administrators, sadly even in our county schools, often define bullying so stringently that they determine the conduct isn't bullying and that the school is doing all that they can, or, well, the behavior continues unabated and maybe there's another form used that's equally as harmful. Yet as recent as yesterday, there was a post on the Facebook about a bullying incident on Huntington Beach Facebook. You can read it there. Now, Education Code Section 234.1 states that all school personnel who observes or witnesses, they changed the word, who observes an act of discrimination, harassment, intimidation, or bullying shall take immediate steps to intervene, so long as it's safe to do so. But who's teaching them how to recognize bullying before it's reported? And the law was enacted in 2012. Our teachers still are not getting specific training they need. And the governor just September 18th of this year signed a new law that says those those trainings need to be online by December 30th, 2019. The law requires that we do something. Is there a solution? Effective programs include relational leadership training and solidarity building. Research shows that a principal and administrators who are engaged from the top down are successful. Programs must be all year long, not just 1 month, like October. And there must be a constant message of relational leadership and solidarity that brings unity, thereby creating a safe school environment where all students can belong and thrive. As reported in the Journal of Education, there's a strong case for relational education. And let me quote retired Tommy Franks. May I do that?
Go ahead.
U.S. Army General Franks wrote, "While it might sound counterintuitive, I believe teaching leadership is the best solution to bullying. And teaching leadership is what I'm giving to America's youth. Some foolishly think
We're the
leadership
ones
is
being
about
bullied.
pushing people around. Actually, it's the opposite. Bullying is about pushing people around. Leadership is about pulling people up."
Thank you very much, Ms.
Wow.
Thank you. I'd like to start with the reason that I am here, and I think it's the reason that everyone else is here. And it's about concern and care for children, for all children. It's not about politics, it's not about hate, it's not about religion even.
Yes, it
It's
is.
not about being pro or anti-LGBTQ, it is about our children.
Yes.
Anything otherwise is just distractions, labeling, and divisiveness.
Yes.
The issue that unites us all is, in one mind and one heart, is to love and protect our children. Now, we're not here, I'm not here to tell you how to avoid the law, how to avoid implementation of the California Healthy Youth Act. I'm here to give parents and you all, the board members, information as to the legal aspects of the California Healthy Youth Act. And there are two overarching categories I want to discuss. The first is the rights of parents to opt out and give consent for their children within the context of sexual health education. The second thing I want to address is constitutional rights of parents and children. Now first, it is against the law to require active parental consent to opt in. And so what this means is that parents don't have to give their consent for children to attend sex ed, which is mandated in middle school and high school. In order for parents to have their kids opt out, they have to see the opt-out notice, sign it, return it to the school. Otherwise, their children will have to be taught everything in their sex class. Now, another thing that parents cannot opt out of is that students 12 years old and older by law can leave school to get an abortion without parental consent or notice, and parents cannot opt out of this. And these are things that should upset parents, because this is a huge burden on parental rights. Now, the second thing that I want to discuss is when parents can opt their children out of sex ed, what topics they can and can't opt out. Now, the ACLU, former legal counsel to the board, Ron Wenkart, and the California Department of Education all stated that parents can't even opt their children out of instruction that discusses gender and sexual orientation. And a quote from the ACLU about the law is, allowing opt-out of LGBTQ-related instruction is discriminatory and violates the law. Now, that is an incorrect interpretation, but that is what the California Department of Education, the ACLU, and former counsel Ron Wenkart, that's their interpretation of it. The correct interpretation is that notice and the right to opt out is not mandated outside the context of sex ed. So for example, if a school were to be teaching sexual orientation issues in literature or history class, that it's notice and the right to opt out is not mandated. But every topic in sex ed is mandated to give parents the advance notice and the right to opt out. Now, outside the context of sex ed, and one example I can give you is in Rockland, California, where a kindergarten teacher discussed issues of gender and transgender and read a book to these kindergarten students. So that was not the context, that was not in sex ed. And so advance notice and the right to opt out was mandated. And so parents in Rockland did not get notice that their kindergartners were going to be taught this. And so mortified students came home and were terrified that they were, that a little girl was going to change into a little boy, and some of these other issues, and that's how parents found out. Now, because it's not mandated, it does not mean that you as the local board and local districts can allow advance notice. You can pass policies that state we are taking a stand to protect parental rights, and we are going to give parents the right to advance notice and to opt out. And all of the parents that are here can get involved, can push their local districts to pass these laws, because these are issues that parents should have a right to at least advance notice and the right to opt out. It should not be taught, especially in kindergarten, but if it is, and if a local community decides that that's what they want to do, parents should have that right, and as a board, you can pass local policies. Now, the second issue I want to address is the constitutional rights of parents and students. Now, first, as a gentleman mentioned earlier, the Establishment Clause. Government is to assume a neutral stance that treats all religions and non-religious people fairly and enables religious liberty. This includes respecting different views of students of issues of gender and sexual orientation. And students do not have to celebrate ideals that are against their religious views. Students with religious views against these issues must not bully and must treat all students with kindness, compassion, and love. That is no issue that we can even debate. That is a fact. But there is free speech, and all students have the right to express their beliefs and views even in schools. Just because a student walks on campus, it does not mean that their constitutional rights are stripped from them. And parents are the only ones that have the right to direct the upbringing of their children.
Sadly.
And so with
That's
that
true,
in
yes.
mind, you as a board should pass policies that protect parental rights. You can comply with the California Health and Youth Act, but you can still respect and honor parents.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. We will next hear from Brenda Lepstadt.
Before you start the timer, do you all have a blue folder in front of you?
We do, yes, we do.
Okay, so good. All right, we can start it now. I enjoyed what Dr. Weed said, let's move from ideology to evidence, and that's why you have those blue folders, so as I speak, I'm over? That was a preview. Okay. So today I'm not representing any district or organization. I speak on behalf of myself. My concern about AB 329 is medical inaccuracy when it comes to HIV prevention and false information to and about parents. Each board member has been provided a folder with labeled documentation for each of my points. Exhibit A, if you'd look. In the parent notification template, it's in your blue folder if you want to take a look. Provided to districts from the ACLU for the California Healthy Youth Act. It states, instruction must include FDA-approved methods to prevent HIV. This notice is a promise to parents that FDA methods will be taught when it comes to HIV prevention. I'm going to use the middle school Teen Talk curriculum as an example because it's considered the highest in compliance with AB 329 compared to the other curriculum choices and is recommended by the ACLU. Please see Exhibit B. ACLU. It verifies this fact. It's an email from Health Connected, which is Teen Talk, and the Ashwig rubric. Ashwig is Adolescent Sexual Health Work Group, a collaborative group effort between non-government and government organizations, such as the California Department of Education, to protect sexual reproductive health of California youth. In Ashwig's scoring, Teen Talk was the only curriculum choice with no red marks for non-compliance. Exhibit C, page 162 of Teen Talk, emphasizes the use of condoms during anal sex to stay protected from HIV. But here's the problem. Condoms are not FDA approved for anal sex. Please go to Exhibit D. You will find 3 pieces of
And they don't work
evidence for
20% of the
this.
time,
Number
minimum.
1, a notarized affidavit from Josh Robbins, which states, I am an HIV positive patient activist and social media journalist, and I published an article confirming that the FDA has never approved the medical device condoms for use during anal. Anal sex. Teen Talk also mentions another method on page 155. It states, there are new medications like PrEP and PEP that can also significantly reduce a person's chance of contracting HIV. The problem, though, is the medication PrEP was not FDA approved for minors until just recently. Exhibit E. An email from Dr. Reed, the HIV medical specialist at Orange County Healthcare Agency dated August 3rd, 2018, and an article verifying this message states, the HIV prevention medication Truvada for PrEP was not FDA approved for minors until May 15th, 2018. So basically, anal sex has been taught in our top recommended curriculum since January 2016 with a promise to parents that FDA-approved methods would be taught for HIV prevention when there was no FDA-approved methods to prevent HIV in minors for anal sex until only 4 months ago. That means that the California Department of Education broke their promise to parents throughout the whole state of California for over 2 years. They did not follow their own rules. I spoke to medical doctors about this curriculum, and they confirmed that this curriculum is medically inaccurate concerning HIV prevention. Please see Exhibit F. A letter from Dr. Winkleman, a 24-year pediatrician from Chalk Hospital, a letter from Dr. Van Mol, a family physician and board member of the American College of Pediatricians, and a CDC study. Dr. Winkleman's letter reads, in reviewing Teen Talk, students are not being told medically accurate statistics regarding the effectiveness of condom use in anal sex. They're not being told the truth that anal sex is the highest risk behavior for transmission of HIV, especially since condoms are not FDA approved for anal sex. CDC states that consistent condom use in anal sex stops 70% of HIV infections. This is with perfect use. If the condom is not used perfectly and consistently, this efficacy rate drops significantly. However, in Teen Talk, they are lumping vaginal efficacy condom stats with anal condom stats. There is a big difference. HIV is at least 10 times more easily transmitted via anal than vaginal sex, and condoms may be more likely to fail during anal sex. It's important youth understand the real risks. Since Truvada for PrEP is now FDA approved for minors, that should be emphasized in combination with condoms when actively involved in high-risk sexual behaviors in order to prevent HIV. End of letter. In order to verify this 70% efficacy stat from the 2013 CDC study that Dr. Winkleman referenced, I contacted the National Coalition of STD Directors in Washington, D.C. Please see Exhibit G. An email dated January 26, 2018 from Matthew Pryor, who is the Senior Manager of Communications from NCSD, confirmed the 70% efficacy stat for perfect condom use for anal sex. Also included in Exhibit G is a letter from ACLU quoting Ed Code 51934A, which says the California Healthy Youth Act requires instruction on the relative risk of HIV transmission. Relative risk means ratio of probability. However, none of the approved curriculum choices by Ashway inform students about the 70% risk for HIV transmission. Why? Is this misinformation really supposed to keep our kids safe? I don't think the LGBT community wants medically inaccurate information. The Gleason website, which stands for Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, states as fact, LGBT youth are at higher risk of HIV. Please see Exhibit H.
That's true.
Knowing this fact, it surprises me there is criticism from some in the LGBT community. I'm asking for accountability because protecting the health of all students, especially those at higher risk, should supersede political agendas.
We'll next hear from Dr. Laura Haynes.
Members of the board, thank you for the members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to share my concerns. Under the California Healthy Youth Act, CHIA, affirmative curriculum is being taught that is medically inaccurate and developmentally inappropriate for minors. The American Psychological Association does affirm same-sex sexuality as CHIA requires, saying it is normal, but it is now not consistent in that view. The authoritative APA Handbook of Sexuality and Psychology 2014 says no gay gene has been found, same-sex attraction is not simply biologically
That's
caused.
right.
Psychological causes are always present, and childhood sexual abuse can lead to having same-sex partners.
Absolutely.
It based this conclusion on its review of research that included a 30-year study of documented cases of childhood sexual abuse.
Yes.
A highly approved child curriculum, Teen Talk, is medically inaccurate and harmful when it teaches childhood sexual abuse cannot cause same-sex sexuality. Certainly not everyone who is gay has been sexually abused, but certainly some have. CHIA mandates affirming sexual feelings and behaviors forced on some victims by childhood sexual trauma. This is hurtful. How will an affirmative approach make these victims feel? Will they think there is something wrong with them if they don't feel like affirming their feelings as positive or normal? Will they think they can't let anyone know how they feel? Will these students feel welcome and safe in school? Teen Talk also teaches sexual orientation is never a choice based on an outdated reference. That is a black and white statement and a quiz question being taught as fact. Research corrects an earlier APA statement and shows some who experience same-sex sexuality feel they have no choice. Many feel they have some choice, and some feel their sexual orientation is a choice. There is evidence that daily choices, such as participating in a heterosexual social group versus an LGBT social group, or having relationships with the opposite sex versus the same sex, may increase shifts toward or to heterosexuality, especially for women. Students deserve accurate information. Some children are distressed by the sex of their body and wish to be a different sex. They have sexual identity distress. Education that affirms sexual identity distress is not developmentally appropriate. While most children can say at age 3 they are a boy or a girl, sexually identified identity distressed children are developing their sexual identity until adolescence or adulthood. Several professional organizations agree that these minors overwhelmingly outgrow their sexual identity confusion naturally if allowed to, about 80 to 95%. An effort to erase the research behind this research has been well critiqued. Several professional organizations also agree there is no way to tell which children will naturally outgrow their distress over their sex, and affirming children to dress and use pronouns of the opposite sex at school and in the community can actually stop them from coming to embrace their innate body sex. Because many more schools and parents are affirming sexual identity distress in students, more students will be locked in to living as a heterosexual life who otherwise would not have. Extending CHIA below grade 7 would take this from bad to worse. CHIA mandates affirming transsexual identity, increasing the likelihood more students will go down the path of medical procedures to try to make their body appear more like the opposite sex. The World Professional Association for Transgender Health says sexual identity distress may be a symptom of another psychiatric disorder. Treating an underlying disorder that is causing sexual identity distress should resolve both sexual identity distress and the underlying disorder causing it. The American Psychological Association says thoughts of being the opposite sex aren't simply biologically caused by genes, prenatal hormones, or microbrain structures. It says psychological causes are always involved and suggests family pathology may be a cause. The APA says if you affirm sexual identity confusion, you may neglect needed psychological problems that need attention. Children who are distressed about their sex have been shown to have several times more psychiatric disorders in every category. Leaving psychiatric disorders untreated can cause suicide and log sexual identity distress. Students who are affirmed at any step on the path to living as a transsexual usually become locked into this path thereafter. The long-term effects of affirming students as the opposite sex are enormous. Affirming trans-identified children and adolescents sends them onto a path of experimental puberty blockers and toxic cross-sex hormones that often sterilize and foreclose sexual functioning for life. Having their healthy breasts surgically removed as early as age 13, potential castration and destruction of all healthy reproductive organs. There is a push to do this at younger and younger ages. A lifetime of being a medical patient, a 2 to 2.5 times higher rate of death by cancer or heart disease, a 2.8 times higher persisting rate of psychiatric hospitalizations, and a 19 times higher rate of completed suicides after these medical procedures. And even if the transsexuals live in a liberal and affirming community, as in Sweden, one of the most transsexual, affirmative, and atheistic Western nations, and all before they're old enough to drive. The increased deaths from disease and suicide are not observed until 10 years after transsexual medical procedures, well after the initial responses to treatment wear off. Follow-up studies of 1 or 5 years can't show the long-term devastating outcomes. A research review by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services under HHS in 2016 said the research behind the long-term consequences I just listed here is of the highest quality available. Are children developmentally able at age 5, 11, 14, or 16 to consent to heading down this transsexual path? The American Psychological Association said this month that 16-year-olds are impulsive and not developmentally ready to think about parenthood or loss of fertility. These are my recommendations. There is no professional consensus that supports affirming prepubescent children, and there's no scientific evidence that waiting is harmful. CHIA does not require that it be taught to children below grade 7, and I strongly recommend that it not be. Affirming students who experience sex identity distress in 7th grade and high school may help some feel better in the short run, but as far as healthy, it is hardly suicide prevention, and it is not developmentally appropriate for adolescents. A better approach would be educators and parents honestly working together and teaching students to show kindness for all.
We will hear now from Ms. Dula Alwan.
Dr. Williams, members of the board, OC community, fellow parents, teachers, and all those concerned on both sides of this issue. In the spirit of inclusivity, I will be actually gathering a lot of what my fellow panelists have been talking about to kind of reach, because inclusivity is a process. Oh, you're gonna start the timer over? Thank you. I'm gonna need every minute, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll start over. Dr. Williams, members of the board, Orange County community, fellow parents, teachers, and all those concerned on both sides of this issue. In the spirit of inclusivity, I will be actually addressing a lot of the points that my fellow panelists have talked about in order to come to inclusivity and what it means, because it's a process. I have 3 children who went through public and private schools in this county, and in 2017, 55% of Muslim students reported bullying in California schools. I hate that my own children are a statistic. So through my work, I often get calls from parents and teachers to address bullying in schools. No matter who is the bully and who is being bullied, the common challenge is that one human being is seeing another through a label, using labels to dehumanize a fellow student. And trust me, bullying incidents that come to my attention have no age limits. It starts in kindergarten by a fellow 5-year-old, or by a teacher, administrator, or even a school bus driver. I still remember how outraged and heartbroken I would feel when my child would come home in tears, and there's not much we can do about it. I had an administrator actually explain to me one time that if my child is being harassed by a different person every week, then that does not fit the definition of bullying. Really? Who wrote the definition of bullying? No child should ever be bullied. So I can understand where the California Healthy Youth Act is coming from. Students who see themselves different than others should be protected from bullying and discrimination. This is at the essence of my faith and the community I represent. While the need of every community to be represented is understandable, the minute we need to silence one group in order to voice to another, our formula is unjust and will create new harm. I have a unique appreciation for inclusivity and the democratic process. Having personally lived under different dictatorships where multiple perspectives on a variety of issues are not allowed to be expressed, and doing so is punishable by law. I was appalled reading the AB 329. It did not sound like the democracy and freedom of thought, religion, and expression we take for granted in this country. AB 329 explicitly says that no other views on gender and sexuality can be taught in the classroom.
Wow.
This is institutionalized bullying. California Healthy Youth Act's main goal is to make students feel welcome and are not bullied. Isn't that a goal for all students, in all classrooms? I sent my kids to public school to expand their views, to learn about people who are different than them, to learn to stand up for themselves, not to be bullied or silenced. I want them to expect the same dignity and respect they give others. In teaching Inclusion 101, you'll learn that the first step to be inclusive is to see people as human beings, before any labels that comes to mind so quickly. It is counterproductive to attempt to stop bullying by imposing more labels on students. As a faith community, it would be hypocritical to believe that God created and honored every soul, and He is the judge, and then attempt to strip people from their God-given human rights. I understand that this is surfacing out of a need. Curriculums in many subjects lack inclusivity and on various points of view. And our students are not taught how to value and be courteous to one another, regardless of their gender, sexuality, race, religion, disability labels, etc. According to the LGBT 2015 report, 87% of students say that they heard the word gay used in a negative way. This is truly unfortunate, and it led to suicide among several middle schoolers in the past few years. How are we solving this problem by giving students 10 more labels to use against each other? Teaching students to label themselves and others is not inclusive. Again, to be inclusive is to make labels less relevant and less important, which can be achieved by presenting all points of views. According to the AB 329, a girl who likes trucks and football should either accept a new gender identity label or remain silent. Amplify stereotypes about gender and sexual orientation. Inclusive education by definition has to be unbiased, has to be scholarly, and has to be for everyone. If this is so important and you do not want parents to opt out, then represent all voices in the curriculum. Our children deserve an inclusive curriculum taught in an inclusive classrooms. This means that one, all students feel safe and welcome. All students feel free to share their point of view. All students are respected and respectful of others regardless of their differences. And all students are valued and protected to be exactly who they are. Aligning our expectations of curriculum and schools when it comes to inclusion is very critical. There are two prerequisites to claim that we have inclusion. One is to acknowledge our diversity. As human beings, our diversity is not just in our colors, appearances, and languages. It is in our thoughts and conduct, our emotions and interests. Therefore, the mere assumption that everyone should agree on a certain thought, feeling, or conduct is a barrier to inclusion. The second prerequisite to inclusion is engagement. Our students have to be engaged. If students come to school feeling that their beliefs are inferior, we will not be able to claim inclusivity. Engaged students bring their whole self to the classroom. They can focus, think, interact, and participate without holding back and fear of being mocked. This is the reason why practicing inclusion is effective. It allows us to work together and stand up for each other past our differences. So in order to claim that our law and our curriculum is inclusive, we have to challenge stereotypes and unconscious biases we all have, and have to see one another as human beings first. When I supplement curriculum on Islam in classrooms of all ages, I do not expect anyone to agree with me, and I do not expect anyone to fully understand 1,400 years of history and today's 1.8 billion Muslims around the world. However, I do expect people to acknowledge and respect I simply ask we do the same with this law.
Let me give you a bit of a preview of what we have remaining this evening. I'll try to stay on track. And thank you very much for your patient and thoughtful listening, sir. Next, we will have an opportunity for each trustee to take up to 5 minutes to pose a question, or if they're very quick, and the experts are very quick, more than one question to a panelist. 5 minutes per trustee. Once that is completed, we will take a brief break, not to exceed 10 minutes. Following the break, there will be one additional round of questions by trustees to the experts, and the final formal portion of the presentation will be closing remarks of up to 5 minutes by each of our experts. At this time, I would like to invite Trustee Sparks to pose questions.
Thank you. I'm a social scientist in the health area, and I'm curious of the panel. Whenever we talk about scientifically accurate, evidence-based, we're starting to see some confusion around those terms, and I'm wondering if you all could clarify those terms, particularly Dr. Weed.
That's an important question. Evidence-based means a lot of different things to different people, and it gets used often inappropriately. What's been called evidence in some of the comprehensive sex education programs is one outcome of limited ability to affect behavior. For example, some of the research says, well, we have reduced the number of kids who don't use a condom at first intercourse, or we've increased the amount of condom use at last intercourse. That does not reduce pregnancy or STDs. It has to be consistent use, correct use every time, and then you have 80% protection. And none of the studies met that standard, and yet they say we are evidence-based and we're effective. There's some other examples I could share, but that's the idea of it.
So essentially operationalizing what those terms really mean, what they're really measuring, and that's kind of, part of the purpose of us moving forward with this is our thousands of constituents have asked for more information, and we thank you all for coming tonight, because our constituents deserve to hear, all sides of this issue, and to sort of think through some of the confusion. and it leads me to my second question for Nada, is related to teasing out, we hear a lot about the mandated law, what's mandated, what's not mandated, and we hear less about how the curriculum is interpreted. So there's no question, I think, of all of us that we know that the law is what it is, that we need to, all districts need to follow the law and, accordingly in terms of what is mandated, what's not mandated. I think where there's more confusion is around the curriculum and teasing out the difference in the law and in the curricular choices that districts are making. And of course, we're not making any choices for any districts. We're just providing an open forum for information, and I want to make that really clear. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yes, so the California Healthy Youth Act mandates the topics that must be covered. It mandates that abstinence must be covered, and it states that abstinence cannot be the only thing covered. But districts have the discretion if they want to emphasize abstinence while still teaching HIV, STD prevention, and things like that, they can do that. But there is nothing in the curriculum that, the examples that you heard that are outrageous and pornographic, that is not mandated by the California Healthy Youth Act. Nor are the selections of curriculum. As a school board and even local school districts, they can select a curriculum that complies with the law, that respects parental rights, and reflects the values of their constituents, while still providing children with the information that they need. So you're right that some of these things, they're not in the California Healthy Youth Act. A quick glance at what's required by the Healthy Youth Act shows that a lot of this goes beyond, and it's pushed by special interest groups, by Planned Parenthood and some of these other groups that
That's right.
want to promote this agenda. And so that's not in the law, but it's the minds behind the perverse curriculum.
Perverse.
Yeah.
Yes. Good word. That's the word.
Thank you, Trustee Sparks. Trustee Buck?
I'd like to put mine in that as well. So much of the talk seems to me is a concern with the curriculum. And so I hear everybody reads from different curriculums. I hear there's 5 or 6 curriculums. So it seems like everybody has issues with a lot of the curriculums. Is there a curriculum out there already that would be more acceptable to parents, to schools, to teachers, to children, to everybody? Does it exist? If it doesn't exist, can it exist? And do we know if it exists out there? Do we know, is there something that is more palatable, something that another district has created, something they want to share? We researched those avenues?
Yes, that's a great question. San Juan Capistrano is currently developing a curriculum. It is not complete. Another approach that I've seen school districts take is to use former curriculum and to add some of these additional requirements, such as inclusivity of the gender spectrum and sexual orientation. So to add those components to an existing curriculum that parents were okay with. So a curriculum does not have to be completely rewritten. So you can use previous curriculum and just add in some of these things. And along those same lines, you can teach the required material in a way that doesn't promote one view over the other, that doesn't promote religion, but it also does not promote the secular view. You can teach theories about sexual orientation, and as we heard from some of our panelists, there are different theories. There's not one particular view on, are people born this way, quote unquote, or, what are some of the social factors. So we can give children the information without telling them how to believe. And let them, especially age appropriate in high school, give them the theories, the information, if their parents choose to expose them to that, and let them form the views. We don't have to indoctrinate them like some of this curriculum is doing, but we can give them information.
Forward, how would we set that in motion? What is the best way legally to set that in motion?
For an alternative curriculum. So when San Juan Capistrano is complete, and I believe they're nearing completion, we can have legal counsel and even Tyler and Burge can pro bono review it. You can have your legal counsel, have a variety of legal organizations review the curriculum, and see if it complies with the law. And I don't think it's hard to comply as long as you're covering these topics. And so, once we have that, then I would recommend implementing it across school districts and for parents to push for alternative curricula such as the one that's being developed in San Juan Capistrano.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gardner. Trustee Williams.
Okay, you all did great. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody here had a comment that struck home. I don't have enough time to ask all the questions, but I'll try and address my questions to people who have not talked. We're going to give you a little bit of silence now. Deborah, I saw you write a lot when Dua was talking. I know you're thinking of something because a lot of your talks are the same. You're talking about inclusivity. You mentioned the process of the anti-bullying program. And I think Dua touched on those issues also. Give me your thoughts on that and tell me what research you have that you want to share with us.
My concern is that bullying's already a problem. When we add a protracted and a promoted agenda and don't allow students on all sides of the issue to talk about it, we're going to have bullying galore and it's going to be a huge problem. I'm concerned that even now, some of our districts don't think they have a problem with bullying, believe it or not. That's why I promote a full year program. And it has to be from the top down, not just the students, not just the parents, not just the teachers. It has to be inclusive of everyone. And when she was speaking, it's a process, inclusivity. These children are going through a process of learning their sexual identity. They need to still be inclusive, and we're talking about children here. In the statistics of the Gallup studies, LGBT is only 4.5% of our population. And that's up from 3.2. It's a very small part of our population. Yet it silences, as she talked about, when one group is silent so another one can speak, those that are faith-based need to be able to talk about it. And there's just such, you see it in the universities where they're blocking out your ability to speak.
Yep.
Anti-bullying programs need to be relational leadership, and it is, I can give you multiple journal articles and I have them in my paper.
So what would that look in a curriculum? Is it something that's taught weekly, monthly? Is it taught in 2-week time periods?
Well, here's what we did. Bullying is most prevalent in middle school. At Bear, we created Bear Leadership Clubs where everyone belongs. So you bring in everyone who wants to be part of the group to learn leadership strategies on how to deal with bullying, why it's not appropriate, and how to deal with it. At Stacy Middle School at Westminster School District, we did this program. They took it on and it was fabulous. A student body president changed his mind about boys will be boys bullying because of this club. It teaches them on a weekly or a monthly basis depending on the school.
Okay, so there's a curriculum. You start from the top down, and it goes and filters through the teachers into the classroom, and then you try to change the hearts and minds of kids.
It's student-led, teacher-energized, parent-approved, community-funded. It's an entire unit. It's a whole school view.
Thank you. Brenda, why does, I was taken by the details of your opening statement. Very well done, a lot of information that I learned from what you were expressing. Why does the state, California, the Department of Education, promote Teen Talk as though it's the all and all for everything? And I think they promote it as the best program out there. Is that correct?
Yes,
And why
they
do they do that?
Honestly, I don't know. There's my answer, I don't know. But there's a lot of things that the California Department of Education, remember, they are part of Ashwig. So there's a lot of things.
What's Ashwig?
Okay, I did say it, and it's the, do I have to look it up, adolescent health,
adolescent
Work.
sexual health, working group.
Okay, yeah. The group that actually looks at the rubric and
It's a
evaluates, it's
state
evaluation group, yes. But it has representatives from the California Department of Education in there. And I think there was somebody who did speak about the framework from the California Department of Education and some of the definitions that are going to, for 2019, go into the California Healthy Youth Act once they become adopted. But I want to point out something that I learned recently that really surprised me, in that I know that Orange County Department of Ed is using Positive Prevention Plus, and we were looking at it as a district as well. And we received something back because I was looking at an older version, and then we received a letter from Positive Prevention Plus that said,
Well, finish your statement. I have that ability to do that.
that they just came up with a new curriculum that was aligned with the new California Health Framework. I said, how could that be when it hasn't been adopted yet? And when I asked the person in my district to please look into it, that person sent me an email back that said, they finally answered me back about your question of how their curriculum is aligned with the science framework before its May release. The answer is that one of their curriculum developers is on the committee.
Thank you, Ms. Linda.
Corruption.
Trustee Gomez.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to be clear that I support parental rights. We as parents have the, don't reflect, take my time.
Prove it.
We have the ability to opt out, and we should be working with our local school district to make sure that we get that information, so that you can make the choice as to whether or not you want your child to participate. Now, my background is in healthcare, and I do support, medically accurate information. It also has to be age appropriate, because there are students that don't understand, can't handle it, and will go home and be confused. But that's where you come. So I'm going to ask my expert panel, because I only have a couple minutes, to take maybe 20, 30 seconds, and hopefully we can all make it, just to answer the question, how can parents support this curriculum? Or how can parents support their children in understanding a safe and healthy, sexual education? So I'm going to start with that for a change. If you can just maybe, in your opinion, what would help parents the most?
I think what helps parents the most is to actually be actually mindful and respectful of what their beliefs and what they choose to teach their children at what age. I know a lot of parents would appreciate the help actually in that department. So that working together with the school and the teachers, being able to see actually the curriculum ahead of time, not just to be out. When I get a permission like that for my children, well, I go like, well, depends. What is it going to be about, right? I want to make an informed decision if I'm opting out or not. My child maybe can benefit from this curriculum, but I don't know what it is. So I think sending that information to parents, and when it comes to these issues, and it's about family values, it's about a lot of different things, and even the bullying, it's not one size fits all. So if we want to make it and try to take an easy way to say, well, everybody, we're going to have this one model and everybody needs to be okay with it. These are issues that are a lot more sensitive to families, to cultures, to religions.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to get to the rest.
No, definitely.
Okay, go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm not an educator, and I'm not familiar with the ins and outs of the system. But I
just in your opinion,
I do
what
think
would
that
support
it would be vitally important for there to be an honest interaction and working together of educators and parents, so that everybody feels that they can sign on to the curriculum, so there won't be polarization and anger about it, and so on. So all parents need to take into account what they would like their children to be taught and what their values are, and do they feel that the curriculum is respectful and inclusive of that. So there needs to be, and the information on what's in the curriculum needs to be readily available to parents. Not hard to get. It's got to be easy because parents are busy, as are educators, and so is everybody. So, put the cookies on the lower shelf, make it very accessible and easy for them to participate, see what's there, and give their feedback.
And no perversion.
Well, I'd like to share with you what the California Department of Education recommends for parents for TK through third grade for the 2019. It's a book called Who Are You? And I'll read just a couple pages. When babies are born, people ask, is it a boy or girl? Babies can't talk, so grown-ups make a guess by looking at their bodies.
Seriously? Are you sure it's a boy?
Some people say there are only two genders,
Oh.
but there are really many genders.
Oh my
I am
God.
girl, boy, both, neither, just me.
That's perversion.
And for some people, there are more than just two choices. There are just a few words people use: trans, genderqueer, non-binary, gender
What?
fluid, transgender, gender neutral, agender, new choice, bigender, third gender, two-spirit, and there are even more words people are using to describe their experience. This is called the gender spectrum.
It's called insanity. It's called delusion.
So, as Brenda pointed out, the framework makes it very difficult on parents to really be involved and support when that is what's being recommended to read. And also, the ability to opt out is not a solution for parents, especially when legal counsel of the board and the Department of Education and the ACLU is saying parents cannot opt out, and they threaten to sue and bully to sue.
Bully.
Thank you. I'll get to you. Cut 'em off.
Thank you, Justice. I tried. Justice Vidal.
Thank you, Meg. Excuse me. My first question is for Dr. Reed. Dr. Reed, could you just give me a very small sentence? There were some things that young people practiced that had a 12-month effect. Did I hear that right? That they, when they want to work, engage in sexual activity, certain practices lasted for 12 months, and then they faded away. Do I have that right?
That wasn't quite right. In the CSE programs, there weren't any effects that lasted for 12 months. We did find, we looked at 17 abstinence programs, abstinence education programs, and a number of those, 47% of them, demonstrated abstaining from sexual activity beyond the 12-month period. Am I getting at your question?
Yes.
So we don't establish that 12-month. That wasn't our rule. That was a rule from the Society for Prevention Research. They said if it's only if the effects of the program last for a week or a month, that's not going to change behavior. It's not going to affect their lives. It's not going to reduce STDs and reduce pregnancies. It's got to be a long-term effect. So 12 months is a minimum. Unfortunately, the CSE programs were not able to produce that.
Well, I guess where I'm coming from, and I apologize if I'm not hearing this correctly. Wouldn't you, as a dad, rather have a good 12 months where then the child matures and can go on to better decision making? See, that's where I was going. Don't worry about it. Mr. Drysdorf, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I was intrigued by what our good colleague from the Orange Board, Brenda, this was you, right? Brenda G.
Yes.
AIDS, rather. School climate and HIV risk. Fact. Many LGBT youth are at a higher risk for HIV infection, particularly youth of color and transgender youth. Fact. Schools are unsafe, which bother every one of us in this room, and unwelcoming for most LGBTQ students, which can have a negative impact on health and well-being. Deborah, from your research, who are the most bullied, and I really appreciate your research and the depth that you put it. If you look at panoply of kids, who are the most bullied kids in the school? Is it the quarterback of the team, who is president of the student union, and who is going to Harvard? Who are these kids? This is what concerns me.
Statistics have shown that disabled kids are generally the most bullied.
Who's
My
being bullied?
concern with the LGBT
Disability.
is that these children are still grappling with the concept. And we
Does
have.
that grappling cause them to be victimized in their school?
Yes, because let me tell you, there's beautiful little boys who seem to be sensitive. They like talking to girls and hanging with the girls and doing sensitive things. The athletes call them sissies, and then it turns to fag and faggot, and they don't know what that means. So they go, oh, well, then that must be what I am. So then they go and they try to solicit a same-sex person, and they're rejected, and they're devastated. How do they go back from saying I'm gay to saying I'm really just a guy? Kids in that area are having a hard time dealing with it. They need to be accepted as a human being without a label, because they're all grappling with it, and they commit suicide in high numbers.
Exactly. Going to your example, there was a very beautiful 9-year-old boy a few weeks ago committed suicide for exactly the same reason you were saying, and he was very supported by his family and not supported by his school.
Right.
And the example that you gave, as I hear, was that the perpetrator of that bullying was another male student.
Generally, yes.
Right. Now, there was a study, maybe you're familiar with this, in the Northbridge area, where they found that girls who were labeled as bullies by their schools, when they brought the mothers in, the mothers basically said, how dare you say that? That's leadership. She's not a bully.
Well, I'm a lawyer.
Right. Oh, I'm
Bullying
sorry.
is something I'm
sorry.
taught to do. But sadly, even in our legal profession, a girl is called.
We're in the city of
bitch,
Costa
a boy
Mesa
is
right
called
now.
aggressive.
That's true.
It's a societal issue.
Yes, I will dig on that. Thanks.
Time's up.
Thank you, trustees. I'm going to ask your assistance and cooperation and pull my kindergarten teacher ready for many years ago. Ask our staff member in just one moment to set the alarm for 10 minutes. When you see the yellow light flashing, if you would kindly repeat your conversations again. So we can check tonight.
Someone has to flick the lights on and off. That's what you should do. Okay. So we're seeing a pretty like comprehensive meeting here today. This is the kind of thing that more parents need to be pushing for in their school districts, in their communities. This is heinous stuff here that I've got to take a look at. So I'm gonna.
Say, brother, that not bullied, that they can learn unencumbered by anybody's labels. I guess I'm concerned that that doesn't happen. I think the very bright are stigmatized. I think the very beautiful and handsome are stigmatized.
Yes.
I think, and
And
that's
smart.
a lot.
Oh, brother.
And seriously, I think that the children of today deserve whatever we can do. And I understand that a principal or parents, to be sure we give them cushions and give them the best knowledge so that they don't become hateful, mean people. And I'm concerned, in all candor, that there are some kids who are going to be more likely hated and demeaned. And it may be because of their religion. Maybe because of their sexual orientation. I just think one of the things I hope to take away from tonight is that every child has dignity,
Amen.
regardless how he or she defines or does not define his or her body. And I think just as we've seen, and I can tell you as a university person, I have seen contrary views squashed, so I get that, and alternative views squashed. But I think these are little people, and I think all of us bear a responsibility. And I don't think that's Pollyanna, because I think what parents say in the home sets the stage. Sets the stage. And if some kid I can tell you, if my any of my children, grandchildren, or much less my business, my children were, ever use the N-word or the F-word, they knew it would hit them. All right, and I don't mean physically, of course.
Yeah,
They would
I hope
really
so.
pay a price for that kind of language, and I think it starts at home. And I'm gonna go back to Trustee Gomez's question. One of the things that I really hope people walk away from this meeting tonight is parents have a great deal of power at 27 local school districts in this county. And one of the things you can do, it's nice to talk about it and moan and groan, but if you have kids in school, you find out who's on the curriculum selection committee by those parents. Because that's where you can really have room. We have absolutely nothing to say that Irvine uses, I understand, pieces of Teen Talk. It is simply not within our purview. It's within your purview if you live in Irvine. And that's where I come from. And I hope that's what you walk away from tonight. Also, Dr. Williams and I were talking in break, not violating the Brown Act. Also, if you have suggestions for amending that law, go for it. And one of the things that I've
Scrap
read
it.
several times, and one of the things I don't think it's very clear on is in how to do opt-out for parents who may not be as well educated as some others. So for me, one of the takeaways I'm gonna have is I'm gonna talk to see some legislators, well, can we do like opt-out? So people feel more comfortable that they can opt out and the legislation. So I just don't want this to be a moan and groan session, I want outcomes. So that's getting involved in the local district and dealing with the people who create the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vidal. Trustee Gomez.
Thank you. This is, well, I'd like to continue with my other question, if I could get Dr. Reed and Ms. Riesedorf to answer about how parents can support the sex education for their students. Dr. Reed, can I start with you?
The first red flag that I would look for is a program that does not mention parents. If there's a curriculum out there that's bypassing the parents, they're concerned that the parents aren't gonna like it.
Yep.
And they leave them out. That would be my first red flag. In addition to what has been said earlier, I want to add this thought. We've developed a program that's a character education program for K through 6. It has 5 learning steps in it, one of which is a learning link with parents. It ties the curriculum experience in the classroom and partners with the parents in a very meaningful way. And what we're finding is that, of course, some parents are more serious about it than others. But the ones who take that seriously have a huge impact. For better or for worse, parents are the biggest effect on our kids' lives. And if programs ignore that, bypass them, they're making a huge mistake.
Thank you.
I would tell parents, use your opt-out wisely. Age appropriate is important. I blindly opted out my children in middle school, and my 35-year-old daughter says, Mom, you didn't tell me what I needed to know. I didn't talk to my kids about the real issues. I didn't make it a safe, free place for them to talk about issues I didn't want to talk about. If we're going to opt out, we have to talk to our kids. There are societal issues that have to be addressed. If it's a safe curriculum, use your opt-out wisely.
All right, thank you. I'd like to, unfortunately, we're seeing so much of this in the news, and it's kind of a little bit of an overkill, but what about the relationship between sex education and sexual assault? I'm going to ask, who was it? I'm going to ask Ms. Alwan if you could maybe address that in terms of, bullying and maybe what you have seen.
The difference between, is it the difference you're asking about?
How does it impact? Does sex education have an impact on sexual assault, or hopefully the lack of?
So something that I wanted to kind of, again, going beyond the labels, I think what's really important is that students see the value of themselves and of others. So if we actually take our identities to be actually our sexual identity, and that's kind of gonna consume the students and how they call each other and what they do. I think it really does open the door for transgression.
Yep.
And for unwelcoming, unwelcome, because you know what, if not everybody's allowed to express themselves also, then where, you know, some students are already, based on what we heard today, are feeling inferior in the classroom when these discussions are going on. So you can just, I mean, think about the unwelcome, right? So are students feeling inferior to also be silent when things are unwelcome that they face? So I feel like shifting the conversation from becoming centered around the identity, the sexual identity of the child, to actually their knowledge, their character, their skills, is a lot more important. I really think that there is a lot more to a human being than their sexuality only. Or
Thank
even,
you.
I mean, the same thing when there's racism, right? When seeing someone only as their race and people are picked on. I think when you open the door to that, yes, you will see a lot more harassment because it's unwelcome and it's being taught as something to explore with. So who are they exploring with? Maybe the silent students.
Uh-oh.
I think I only have like a minute left. So I'm going to ask, Dr. Haynes, you kept talking about gender distress. What's the research on that?
Well, would you like the research of what leads to it, or what would you like to know?
Well, tell me about it.
Okay.
Tell me what are the research is coming from that indicates that children are encouraged to check their gender at an early age, because you mentioned that.
Yeah.
So I was
Okay, so several organizations say that children overwhelmingly.
Which organizations?
I'm gonna list them. The
Okay.
American Psychiatric Association, the American Psychological Association, the Endocrine Society, and the 6 co-sponsoring endocrine and medical organizations in the United States and the United Kingdom all agree that children overwhelmingly outgrow their sexual identity distress if allowed to.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, time's up.
Thank you, Trustee Evans. Trustee Williams.
So my question is very similar to my good trustee on my right. This last August, Brown University researcher, and this is going to be to you, Dr. Haynes, published a study describing teens and young adults who do not have symptoms of gender dysphoria during childhood, but were observed by their parents to rapidly develop gender dysphoria symptoms over days, weeks, months, or during and after puberty. Could you, I think that's an absolutely incredible study. It was polled, for whatever reason, by Brown University. Could you explain why?
Well, Dr. Littman was collecting research from parents who were reporting that they had children, and particularly daughters, who had never expressed any distress over being female. But then they started looking at Facebook, social media, with their friends, with their peers, and then there started to be, well, friends on Facebook were identifying as transgender together. And parents were saying, you know what, I don't think my child is really transgender. I think that they're upset and disturbed about some other things. They're having some trouble, and they're latching on to this as the solution. And but if I call a psychologist for help with this, as soon as I get on the phone, I hear, oh yes, we deal with this all the time. Come in, I'll write the letter for the doctor to start them on this path.
Oh,
of
Lord.
Everything that I just listed, okay? The pre-puberty blockers, the cross-sex hormones, the breast being removed as adolescents, and so on.
Jesus.
Being sterilized potentially for life, and so on. So the parents, were reporting to her that they were feeling up against just so much a wall of an agenda in the schools, in the media, in entertainment, etc. I mean, to the point that people think that Gallup said people think 23% of the population is LGBT when their actual figure was 3.8 in the study. So, and they thought that was because of the media. So, social contagion is a factor that is coming forward as a great concern and a focus that is needing rigorous research. Unfortunately, there is a pushback against such research being done. Some people don't want this idea to be in people's minds. They don't want people to think of this as a factor. And they got her research pulled, even though it was peer reviewed and there was nothing, no one said there was anything wrong with the research. They just thought it wasn't good for civil rights. And this is where we get into theories about sexual orientation, gender identity, and what will help civil rights. And these theories can lead to problems and polarization, so on.
Can I just comment? I know that study, and you guys know the social scientists, social contagion, there's a lot of research on social contagion, right? And that's very legitimate research. I've read this study as well. More studies need to be done in this particular context in terms of social media use.
Yep.
And what's going on in terms of gender identity issues. So that was a relatively small study, about 260 people or something like that. So it might be a picture into what's happening, but much more research needs to be done rather than squelched. You know, knowledge is power, information is power, which is why we're having this, so that all the parents and the families of Orange County can have more information about research on these very topics and science behind it. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. So my suggestion would be that to rely on that social contagion research and show all the research out there on social media use and what's happening in other contexts, and then we can compare that. We know similar results in other contexts to this context. But obviously more research needs to be done.
Right.
Okay, so you took 2 minutes of my time.
No! No, that's not fair. That's bullying.
Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
My final question. I want to thank everybody again for being here. One of you have flown and come from many parts of this nation. We're happy to be here, and I so appreciate it. And you guys have been awesome in providing me with a lot of information. So my last question is going to go to you, Dr. Reed. I've always been someone who has promoted the concept of abstinence.
Thank you.
Abstinence is defined as delaying sexual activity as long as one can.
Until you're married.
You have a more permanent relationship. In your review of the 17 studies, you said there was something about a higher standard outcomes and that the 12-month period was important. So does abstinence education really work? And how is it superior over than the concept of comprehensive sex education, which inculcates and teaches kids how to engage in sex? It's a big contrast.
Yeah, the 17 studies that we looked at, we didn't select these. These were selected by those agencies that I talked about earlier. So we didn't cherry pick these. And of those, about half of them had an effect on delaying sexual initiation, sexual debut for at least a year. The question I think maybe is worth pursuing is that what is it in the effective programs that's maybe different than the ones that were less effective? How do we distinguish the differences? Let me give you some examples. The effective programs were ones that didn't rely on the old paradigm of more information makes for better decisions with kids. That's a poor paradigm. It doesn't work. What does work? We've identified at least a half a dozen key predictors of risk behavior. And when programs incorporate these effectively, they reduce initiation sexual debut by at least half, maybe up to 70%. What are they? The first one is what we call future impact, future orientation. They see sexual behavior and sexual activity as an impediment and a barrier to future options and opportunities. Career, education, marriage and family. They recognize that problem. The second one is what we call their value system, their sense of what's good and bad, right and wrong, important and not important. That affects their behavior. A third one, we call it justification. Kids are good at rationalizing, and to the extent to which they can rationalize and justify sexual behavior, they engage in it. So programs that target that directly and help them with critical thinking, they're more effective. Another one, independence from peers. They are able to recognize negative influences, and reject it. Those are some examples. And it's not just one of those that's going to make a program effective. All of them combined together create this huge impact on initiation of sexual activity.
Yeah.
60 to 70% reduction.
So what happens when a teacher takes out a banana and brings a condom and says, this is how you use it?
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned earlier that there are no programs that have demonstrated an ability to change behavior when they teach both of those things side by side. Those are incompatible messages. Why are they incompatible? Well, one message says sex is normal, natural, healthy, and you ought to engage in it when you can, with whom you can, and here's how to have it more pleasurable. Okay? That's the underlying philosophy behind most comprehensive sex education programs. Abstinence education has a different philosophy. It says the abstinence of sexual activity is normal and healthy at the right time and in the right place with the right person in a committed relationship. Those two things are not messages that work together in the same classroom and in the same program. And so you can't do them both. I think that's one of the problems. California law, they think you can do both of those things. That's not possible.
I think I'm done.
Dr. Williams. Trustee Barton.
So I'm going to go back to my sort of original theme of what is really bothering, I think, families is what's being taught, they don't know what's being taught, what's legal, illegal. So I think transparency is the other thing. And Dr. Reed brought it up with income parent and no concern. And so how can we get more transparency? And anybody who thinks they have a great answer can answer. Brenda, I'm thinking because you're a trustee, maybe you could tell us how that works in your world because that's where it's going. So how can we make sure there is transparency?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, I think Dr. Bedell wrote a letter to all the districts that gave some great admonishment, but also ideas for putting things on website, making it easily accessible.
Right.
So they don't have to jump through hoops, you know, parents don't have to take off work, putting it online so they can view it at their pleasure rather than being breathed down their neck while they're looking at it and feeling uncomfortable. Those are some ways. I think transparency is very important. I want to share something with you because I did mention in my first speech about a political agenda, and that's kind of a power-packed word, but there is something going on here, and I do get from Gleason, which is the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Educators Network, and they have here that the main objective is for male and female cisgender and heterosexuality should not be considered the norm because that view is discriminatory.
Oh, brother.
Heteronormativity is an assumption that heterosexual identity is the norm, which plays out in interpersonal interactions and institutional privileges that further the marginalization of lesbian, gay, bisexual, asexual, and queer people. Cisnormativity, the assumption that cisgender identity is the norm, which plays out in interpersonal interactions and institutional privileges that further the marginalization of transgender people. This goes along with transparency because this is the goal. They are stating the goal is to change the norm.
Any thoughts on how we can make it more transparent? Does anybody want to just jump in?
I think, as Brenda said, making the curriculum more accessible. I mean, even me as a lawyer, knowing the Freedom of Information Act, trying to see the actual curricula from different school districts is a challenge. I mean, some districts get very defensive as if you want to attack them, and so they try to hide some of this, and it's difficult. I mean, it takes a few of our staff members to have to continue to check in, to cite the law that allows parents and community members to review the different curricula. And so having it on a website that parents can view it, and just having the trust between schools and parents. I think, we're all on the same side. Teachers, they care about children. So just to take away that divisiveness and for us all to be like-minded on one page and to not have secrets.
School districts have lots of secrets.
I think that would be, and to me, that would make me so happy that every district had to have it on their website. They had to be transparent with every child, or every parent knew exactly what's taught. I think this is really long.
May I just second that? I'm not from California. I wasn't familiar with what you're using here, But I went online to check out some of the titles of these programs that I was given were part of the choices. And none of them had any thorough explanation of what was in the curriculum. They had an outline, very brief stuff, and none of them had any evidence that I could find anyway that demonstrated that they were effective. I think one of the challenges ought to be to the state superintendent of public schools. He claims, for example, in his letter that, what does he say here? This is a quote from his letter. The purpose of the California Healthy Youth Act is to provide every student with the knowledge and skills necessary to protect their sexual and reproductive health from unintended pregnancy, human immunodeficiency virus, and sexually transmitted infections. The letter further states, implementation of the California Healthy Youth Act
But at the same time,
the necessary health education.
But at the
and
same
skill
time, you
building
can
to protect our
knowingly
students.
infect somebody with
Now, that's a huge
HIV. That's
promise.
only a misdemeanor now.
Where's the evidence?
Totally inconsistent.
I would require the state superintendent to produce the evidence and say, we can't implement any program that hasn't been proven effective. And I can tell you that the way the law is written, you won't find any that are effective.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of parents and constituents are feeling frustrated about what's happened here. Two quick questions, and I know my time, I already took some of Dr. Williams' time, so just answer which one of these two you want. First of all, we know from the research that the frontal cortex, the prefrontal cortex, not developed till, early to mid-20s, right? And so that ties into this idea of what is age appropriate for this curriculum. Obviously, it's required in seventh grade, middle school, it's required in high school. It may be implemented in K-6. So that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, to what extent are districts required to report who is teaching the curriculum? Is it the kid's own science teacher in middle school? Is it the kid's own health ed teacher in high school? Or is it outside sources that are being pulled into the district? So I'll throw those two questions and go.
Well, as I laid out before, the transgender identity at any age, especially in a minor, is inappropriate because it leads them down an enormously destructive path for their body and their health and leads them to a high rate of completed suicides compared to non-transsexuals. And no minor is capable of giving consent to being led down that path or locked into it. And we also do know that sexual orientation is also still developing over time. There is evidence that teenagers have quite a capacity for change in their sexual attraction or behavior. 42% of men who ever experienced same-sex behavior experienced it before age 18 and not after. There's other evidence that close to half of exclusively same-sex attracted boys become heterosexual a year later, between 16 and 17 years old. There's some evidence for that. So there are multiple studies saying that there's change in sexual orientation, quite a lot of it. And if you label somebody, again, in this area, and you put them in an LGBT group, that is an influence, and you give them affirming education, those are social factors in themselves that can influence the direction of development. And there's a lot of natural shifting away, toward or to heterosexuality if you don't have that going on. So I think there's a reason to question whether any of this is appropriate for minors.
Yep. How about none of it?
Does anyone want to take the second question?
Yes, I'll take that, Dr. Sparks. So Section 51936 of the California Healthy Youth Act states that school districts may contract with outside consultants, guest speakers, to deliver comprehensive sexual health education. And some school districts do bring in outside speakers. And sometimes it is from special interest groups, from Planned Parenthood.
Boo.
But also it can be from someone who has evidence-based, safe curriculum. And so, other people can come into the schools. Parents don't have to give notice, don't have to be given notice as to who is presenting this. But that's something that you can do as a board, and that local school districts can do. They can pass policies to allow notice, as to who's coming in to give this curriculum to their children.
Planned murderhood sucks. Planned murderhood, that's what they are.
Thank you, trustees.
My turn, I want to talk.
We will allow each panel member 5 minutes.
I don't want to listen to
up 5
them.
minutes to address their closing remarks to the board and the audience. Ms. Alban, would you start, please?
I'll go after this.
Thank you. It's actually ironic thinking that with, I'm specifically unfortunately speaking about inclusion, and while the voices that support the AB 329 decides to pull out, right, and cancel their speakers.
Right.
And I ask that since this law affects all of us, if we can't manage to actually hear this discussion and answer questions, I don't know how we can expect our students to respect one another and treat each other fairly. Some of you might remember when evolution was taught in schools as the only option for years. What does it harm to those who believe in evolution to let others believe in a different theory?
That's right.
When school curriculum introduced creationism, no one was forced to change their opinion or feel inferior. It is not the job of the law to police family values and identity classifications. As a targeted faith community, we know that this is not the first or the last law that attempts to limit our rights and goes against the Constitution, unfortunately. So growing up in Saudi Arabia, in public school, government had a law. I'm drawing this parallel because none of the nations that I actually lived around and traveled to wake up one day and have a dictatorship. It's a process that people slip into, and it's a very dangerous one. I think we need to appreciate our democracy. So the government in Saudi Arabia had a law that girls don't play sports. Outrageous, right? But isn't that just a form of assigning gender classification? It's a fact that more males enjoy Monday Night Football than females. That law is still outrageous. The government also mandates by law that girls attending public schools have to wear all black. Sounds oppressive. Well, it is. Policing people's emotions, likes and dislikes, choices of personal expression is the same as policing family values and what parents want to practice and teach their children. Years of research and data had actually already proven that through inclusivity, when you actually achieve inclusivity, it will yield a positive environment for everyone, less bullying and discrimination, and better academic achievements. Students will have higher grades when they feel that they are included. And this is very important because to achieve inclusivity, you have to actually have a system of reward and accountability. Meaning that if a student or a teacher stops bullying, there has to be a system of reward. There has to be accountability when an incident goes by unhandled. So this is otherwise inclusivity becomes this really kind of nice things to have, but we really don't have time for it. As a nation, we have a rich history of expanding the inclusion of different underrepresented groups, being inclusive of girls in schools, of black students, bilingual students, Catholics, Jews, disabled students, etc. Even though we still have a long way to go to achieve equity in education, we made great progress by being inclusive. Given our track record as a nation, students with various gender identities and sexual orientations will be included. And it is possible to achieve their inclusion without infringing on parents' rights, religious rights, and the need to silence anyone. I encourage everyone here to go home and Google the video, Brown Eyes, Blue Eyes, to witness how quickly children turn to bullying their own friends the minute they were assigned labels. It affected their self-image, their friendships, and their academics. No law and none of us will ever have full control of what children learn at home or their places of worship. So rather than diverting energy into policing parents, our students deserve every effort to ensure that they graduate knowing that it is part of our humanity to have varying experiences and viewpoints, which will make our future brighter. School should be a safe place for all students, the ones who identify on the gender spectrum and the ones who don't. Thank you.
Dr. Haynes.
I want to say that promoting certain theories of sexual orientation and gender identity leads to a lot of trouble.
Yep.
There was a comprehensive review of research on sexual orientation and on civil law for people of same-sex sexuality. It was conducted by Dr. Lisa Diamond. She is an avowed lesbian, a political activist, and she's the co-editor-in-chief of the APA Handbook of Sexuality and Psychology, which the American Psychological Association has given its imprimatur and declared authoritative. It said its editors and authors are among its most respected members. And Dr. Diamond is both a co-editor-in-chief and an author of chapters. So she is one of the American Psychological Association's most respected researchers, and her area of expertise is spontaneous change in sexual orientation, which she says frequently occurs. And her co-author was Professor Clifford Brodsky, who won the Equality Award from the Human Rights Campaign,
Which is a human
which
wrongs
is a
campaign.
very large LGBT
Right.
political activist organization. These two said that through their in their study that there has been an agenda to promote the idea that sexual orientation is inborn, can't change, and can't be chosen. I said this is unscientific, and they give ample research on this, and that it harms LGBT people because some feel that they do have some choice. Some feel their sexual orientation is a choice. They, in fact, they call it. And yet anyone who says that can get bullied
Right.
by the LGBT community.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And they said, you know, we're in that way, there was we're in that way is absolutely not true. Most of the public
That's right.
thinks it is. Commonly believed perception.
This is a good one.
And
I gotta get her
that sexual orientation, of course, can change. And she should know, she did a 10-year longitudinal study on women who had same-sex sexuality. And she said at the beginning of the 10 years, two women could be equally same-sex attracted and strongly so, and at the end of 10 years, one would have settled down with a woman, one would be happily married to a man. Well, what happened in between? Well, she said one stayed in her lesbian social reference group, and she solidified her interest in same-sex, and she settled down with a woman. The other one left her LGBT group in college. She went into a male-dominated. She had relationships with men, and she became less interested in seeking out same-sex attractions, and her opposite-sex attraction solidified, and she became happily married to a man. So yes, sexual orientation can change, and social context affects it. Not only cultural values changing, but the social context the individual puts themselves in. And Chaya is a social context that in itself affects people's choices.
Right.
And she said the women who went from being lesbian to having a relationship with a man were bullied by their lesbian community for leaving and for changing.
Wow.
So theories about sexual orientation and gender identity can get us into lots of trouble. They can harm LGBT people and transgender people. They can, obviously, we know they can polarize parents who are involved in this curriculum. And I think it is really best to try to have as few theories about sexual orientation and gender identity in the curriculum as possible for everyone's welfare.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Haynes. Ms. Lexack.
You all still have your blue folders, right?
We do.
Okay, good. Besides the California Department of Education breaking promises to parents about the guarantee that FDA methods would be taught for HIV prevention, and the medical inaccuracies in the top recommended curriculum by Ashwig, of which California Department of Ed representatives were included, I would also like to point out a misrepresentation of parental views by the ACLU. Please see Exhibit I. It's a toolkit to parents written by the ACLU. It states that 89% of parents in California approve of comprehensive sex education in context of the California Healthy Youth Act. After reading the top recommended middle school curriculum, this statistic surprised me. There were some concepts in the curriculum most people had never heard before, such as gender spectrum, meaning you can be both genders, neither gender, gender fluid, and that gender possibilities are unlimited. Pansexuality, defined in Teen Talk as, quote, someone who is sexually attracted to men, women, non-binary people, trans people, genderqueer people, and many more, exclamation point, unquote. And then anal sex, oral sex on anus, dental dams, etc. Because I found this stat hard to believe, I contacted the professor from Berkeley who conducted the study. Dr. Norman Constantine graciously sent me the 24-page parent survey and data results. I emailed this extensive study to all of the Orange County Department of Ed board members. Interestingly enough, I did not find any questions about gender identity, gender spectrum, pansexuality, asexuality, anal sex, or oral sex on anus. Some of the most controversial parts of this new sex ed were never mentioned in the 24-page survey. Then I saw the study was conducted in 2007. AB 329 was passed in 2015, implemented in 2016. How could these new curriculum contents from 2015 even be represented in a 2007 study? I don't think some of these words even existed in 2007. ACLU obviously misrepresented California parents in their approval ratings of the California Healthy Youth Act by inaccurately quoting this 2007 Berkeley study, and they quote it frequently. Exhibit I provides evidence of this, which are letters varied in the district showcasing the 89% of parental approval stat. So here's my question. Is it right to follow a law that's based on unkept promises to parents,
And lies.
a misrepresentation of parental views, and most of all, a top recommended curriculum which places students in harm's way of an incurable disease such as HIV due to medically inaccurate information? President Barack Obama stated in one of his speeches, "Now we may hope that our leaders and our government stand up for our ideals, stand up for what's right." And here, there are many times in our history when that's occurred. But when our laws, when our leaders, and our government are out of alignment with those ideals, then the dissent of ordinary Americans may prove to be one of the truest expressions of patriotism. I agree full-heartedly with President Obama's statement, because one of our most valued ideals is to protect the health of our children. May we all express true patriotism and stand for what's right.
Thank you, members of the board and Superintendent Harris. Your job is not an easy job, and I just thank you for your sacrifice of time, energy. I know it can be energy draining and stressful, and it is a calling to be on this board. So I thank you so much, and all of us, on behalf of all the people here, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for caring about our children and for listening to everyone. Echo Dr. Vidal's comments about not letting this just be a moan and groan session, but about taking action. Parents to review curriculum, to attend local board meetings, to know your rights to opt out, and to rise up when you're told otherwise. And to ask your local districts to pass policies that clarify that you can opt out of all sex ed, that you can opt out of controversial topics even outside the context of sex ed, and for local districts to pass policies not to teach sex ed to kindergarten through 6th grade, because that's optional, and also to push for alternative curricula. And finally, parents to go to your local school board meetings, ask them to put the curriculum online, to pass policies that it will continue to be online once it's updated or changed. And as an example, to the 27 local districts under your purview, you can pass these policies. I know that you don't have control of the local districts, but you are an example to each and every school district in your purview. And as for bullying, that is something that we all agree on. And parental rights and instruction against bullying and inclusion are not exclusive. We can have both. Schools have a duty to protect every child against bullying and harassment, and they have full authority to prevent bullying and discipline anyone who engages in it. Unfortunately, anti-bullying education has a lot of times very little to do with stopping kids from bullying. Instead, it's often been co-opted as an opportunity to instruct children about gender identity, ideology, and similar controversial topics. That's why even when those topics are discussed, parents should be notified to determine whether they are comfortable with the school exposing their child to these things, and whether a parent would prefer to talk to their child about bullying in a manner that does not expose them to gender identity ideology before a child is mature enough to understand it. And so I would encourage you as a board member to take all this information, consider it, and also think about what policies that you can pass, both for the Orange County schools that are in your purview and also for the 27 local school districts who are looking to you as an example.
Thank you, Ms. Aguirre. Ms. Rystra.
Can I say ditto, ditto, ditto? You know, the question on sexual assault I must address as a sexual harassment attorney, Trustee Gomez. The curriculum that I heard tonight and what I've done does not teach about how to have a healthy sexual welcome relationship. That concerns me for the safety of our children.
Yep.
Because their curriculum is not ready for that. Excellent question. Based on my ongoing research and experience and studies, I can confidently tell you that the best counteraction to bullying behaviors is empathy and mindful behavior. Behavioral scientists will tell us that when we can increase the frequency of positive behavior to the extent that there's no time for bad behavior, we've been successful. And just as Trustee Dr. Vidal says, what parents say at home set the stage. When we have conversations with our children, they have to be mindful and with empathy. As recent as 2016, UCLA led a study of 7,000 students in 77 schools and determined that one program was more effective in reducing bullying among sixth graders. It significantly improved self-esteem and reduced depression. In the Journal of Consulting and Clinical Psychology, they identified a program from Finland, which included role-playing exercises to teach students empathy and leadership courage to intervene safely in observed bullying incidents. Schools with zero tolerance were found not to be effective. That's why at BEAR we support the leadership clubs. And there was a school in our own county that had athletes daily walking through the halls intimidating non-athletes. Often they were disabled or LGBT students. Shoulder bumping is what the teachers told me. I go, oh, so buddy to buddy? Oh, no. So we created Honor the Brand. Honor the Brand builds solidarity in the school. It involves the administrators, teachers, parents, students, and the community in talking about one central theme. Y'all remember your high school mascot?
Yes.
Yes.
I was a Charger, mighty, mighty Charger. We all gather and rally around that. What if all the football players went to the theater events? What if the theater students went to the baseball events? What if the baseball students went to the basketball? Everybody becomes united under the theme of our mascot, Honor the Brand. I'd like you to look at our program, parents, because you're the ones who get it in. And BEAR does not promote LGBT as a privilege. It's an encompassing inclusion that all students are treated with fairness and support. So programs that bring the message you want your children to have are the kinds of programs you need to get into your schools. So it's together that we make the difference.
Thank you, Ms. Weisman. Dr. Reed.
I read parts of the letter from the State Superintendent of Public Education, and particularly drew attention to his implied promise that kids are going to be protected under this policy. I would say to him, to meet that promise, my recommendation is that the State Superintendent of Public Instruction require that any sex education program being proposed for use in school classrooms within their jurisdiction must meet the same credible standards we use to identify effective programs. Standards based on the science of prevention research. And I've already listed those, you know what they are. It's not enough to hope that the promise of the California Healthy Youth Act will just happen. Parents deserve to know that proposed solutions have been rigorously tested and have produced credible evidence that they will fulfill the promise. The field of prevention research has developed standards that can provide this credible evidence. And we have examined and reported on the existing research for school-based sex education programs using these standards. We recommend that the state superintendent make use of this information in fulfilling their responsibility to protect the health and well-being of the students for whom they have stewardship. I mentioned also earlier that we've seen absence education programs, not all of them work, but about half of them have, which is an improvement over 15 years, 20 years ago when maybe 10% of them worked. It's been an evolving process to learn how to do this and do it well and be effective. I'm reminded that this may be outside the mainstream today, but the CDC said this: abstinence from vaginal, anal, and oral intercourse is the only 100% effective way to prevent HIV, other STDs, and pregnancy. The correct and consistent use of male latex condoms can reduce the risk of STD transmission, including HIV infection. I'm still quoting. However, no protective method is 100% effective, and condom use cannot guarantee absolute protection against any STD or pregnancy. So why would we want to propose kids something that is less than 100% effective?
Amen.
Yep.
Now, critics say that abstinence education is shame-based, it's not effective, and yet on the other hand, they want to include it with condom and contraceptive education. Why, the logic escapes me. If they think it's such a terrible approach, why combine it? I'll tell you why. Because it makes their approach more palatable to parents. Oh yeah, we teach abstinence, it's in there. The version of abstinence that you see in some of these programs would embarrass you. Another criticism about these programs is that they say, well, you're teaching values, you should be teaching values. We teach values all the time. We teach values about bullying. We teach values about the environment and protecting it. We teach kids to be responsible. Don't use drugs. Those are all values that we teach. Why would we not want to teach them values about their sexual behavior? Let me close with this quote. You remember the name Albert Einstein? Fairly bright guy. Here's what he said.
Pretty bright.
The most important human endeavor is the striving for morality in our actions.
Yep.
Our inner balance and even our very existence depend on it. Only morality in our actions can give beauty and dignity to life. Thanks very much.
It should be like, you don't have to change it. It should be okay when I go out.
Members of the panel, and thank you to the audience for your enthusiastic and polite participation. I'm going to turn the meeting back over to President Dr. Williams.
Very good. Thank you, Maggie. You're awesome. You did a wonderful job. And thank you to my Thank you to you six there. Your heroism your dedication, your concern for kids and their innocence, for parental rights, for inclusivity, for the facts about kids who are exposed to different varying sexual activity and the ability to change back and forth. Brenda, for your detailed analysis of all these curriculums. And Nana, what a great job that you did explaining the legal aspects. And Deborah, I love you. You're great. We've known each other for quite some time, and we share a lot with what you talked about today. Having safe schools and creating an environment for kids through personal relationships. And Dr. Lee, thank you. You're a world famous person who came to little old Orange County. You gave up your time. You didn't get paid for this, but we thank you and honor you as a man of integrity and a man who talks about science, and you have given us a lot of information. So in wrapping up the meeting tonight, we have to change the tape. So we have to take a hard break at this time. It'll probably be about 10 minutes. For those of you who want to stay around and give us your public comment, if you can come up here and talk to Nina, because we want to get you, and we'll stay to 10 if that's necessary, even later. But otherwise, I want to thank you all. We're going to take a hard 10-minute break. God bless you all.
So, folks, I'm going to take a break. I'll be...
Andrea Taylor, followed by Terrence Wade.
Shopper. Thanks. Oh, we got a lot more than 3. Okay, we're not ready yet.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is George Roska, and I will not belabor on topics that were already covered, which is plenty tonight. But I do want to reinforce something that was mentioned here tonight, but wasn't necessarily cited from another source that I think will reinforce comprehensive sexuality education and its inability to live up to the promises that it states. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, also known as UNESCO, concluded in its 2018 revision of the International Technical Guidance on Sexuality Education. It states on page 28, and I quote, "It is difficult to draw strong conclusions about the impact of CSE on biological outcomes such as STI or HIV rates, as there are still relatively few high-quality trials available, particularly those that take a longitudinal approach," end quote. And then it cites 3 authors, Spawner 2014, Lopez 2016, and Oranganje 2009. How is it that probably one of the organizations that promotes CSE worldwide is coming to the conclusion that there is no evidence behind it to support it? And yet, over and over, the 6 curriculums that are state approved by ASHWAG, Advocates for Youth, and then also the Future of Sex Education, which publishes the national sexuality education standards here in America, keep on citing and stating that CSE works. Thank you, sir.
Andrea Taylor, followed by Terrence Bates.
I'm mom of 3 young children. They're not yet in school, but and I'm coming from a communist country where, unfortunately, you can see on the market magazines women naked. You can see on TV women without bras, only in bikini presenting shows. You don't see it in California. You don't see it in the United States. You can't see these things on TV. But I'm horrified to see that this kind of pornography is taught in school. I mean, I'm horrified. I don't understand how anybody in school, the teachers, I mean, this is about you that are in school and you are forced to present this. And I'm sure you don't agree. You didn't know at your age about this kind of things, and you don't even know how to present it to your kids. Most parents are okay with the sexual education because they don't know how to speak about these things with their own kids. They have no idea what gender fluidity is. So all these curriculums send back to the parents to talk at home about, but they don't know what to talk about. I think all the problem would be solved if they would put a policy that would call the parents into an education and to give them the skills to actually present all these things at home to their kids, not to teach the kids. The kids would not educate the parents at home. The parents should educate the kids with things and tools that the school should actually put in their hands. So I think that would change all the vision about all this craziness that's happening. And I don't know if you guys can put a policy that can help educate the parents, invite them at the meeting and invite them to be actually taught tools and skills to teach this at home. And it would eliminate the bullying because everybody would present all this in their own culture, in their own manner to their kids, and would bring them to narrow it down to their own understanding. And it will not make one fit all. It will be put it through the eyes of the parents. So I think that will solve the issue. If you're asking for him to solve an issue.
Thank you.
Terrence Bates, followed by Maria Albright.
Good evening, honorable, and might I add, elected board members. And thank you for the expert panel and these concerned citizens that are here. My name is Terrence Bates. I live in Fullerton. I have 4 kids. One is in college now. He went through the public school system and he's successful in college. I have 3 other kids that are still in the public school system. And I have to tell you, they're confused. 2 high schoolers and 1 elementary school son. The CHIA sex education agenda has been forced upon parents and children for 2 years now. This law passed in California by the leftist legislature, who on a consistent basis passes laws without our knowledge, making sure those who oppose this agenda have no choice. Why is it that we are catering to a certain group of kids and parents? That seems unfair and biased. Since this immoral agenda is forced on Californians, then I propose that the California State Board of Education actually use our taxpayer funds in a wise way and implement an online curriculum for all parents with all children of all genders and give us parents the choice of what topics to discuss with our children.
Yes.
Which will be a true way to opt out. On the flip side, it is sad to say, but the facts are that if someone wants to learn and teach perversion, they will figure out a way, any way to do so, even the parents. But at least this way, we can protect the children and parents who do not need or want this perversion taught to them in the classroom.
Right.
Also, we can make our voices heard about the future of California's education system, specifically about CHIA, by voting on November 6th for John Cox for governor, who will Thank you very much.
Well said.
Maria Albright, followed by Joe Imbriano.
Good evening all night. Thank you for giving us, all members of the board and all the people here. I am a mother and I'm concerned about not only my children, but all the children here in the United States and all the world. Because I feel the love of a mother, not only for my children, I care for all the children in the world. And I come this night, not in my name, but in the name of the Most High. Who rules over us all, and one day each of us in different time going to be in His presence to be accountable for all our deeds. Believers and unbelievers, poor and rich, men and women of authority, alike going to be accountable. Can be today, tomorrow, we don't know when. Our founding fathers of this country were strong believers, and we know that, all of us. We are standing in a land that has been built as thousands of lives. This program is clear, destructive for our children, families, and the supreme law of this the Constitution of our country. I'm going in a rush because I want to say everything. We're talking about freedom, but I don't think we have freedom anymore. We don't have freedom. The government is taking our place as parents. We are the children. The children are belongs to us. God entrusted to us.
Yes.
As parents, the government, not to the state, not the OCDE, not anybody. We are the only accountable people before God and men of our children. When a teenager gets in trouble, what happens? The police come and the parents are accountable for anything the teenager does. Why the government is the one that has to do all that?
Your time is up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Followed by Bethany Guajardo.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joan Briano. I run the FullertonInformer.com website. I also run WiFiDangers.com website and the Fullerton Informer YouTube channel. I want to thank you folks for coming out here tonight. I didn't hear anybody call to task the legal staff of the County Board of Education or the subordinate districts to call the ACLU out on their criminal behavior in this manner, because that's what I believe it is, in my opinion. We have medically inaccurate curriculum that's been rolled out, and the districts have been threatened with legal action by the biggest bully of them all. And the children, as we speak, are in harm's way from a variety of agendas. This is an agenda. Make no bones about it, ladies and gentlemen. This is an agenda to corrupt children and to lower the age of consent.
Yeah.
And at the ultimate core of this is a satanic agenda that goes to the highest levels of power in the world government. There's a reason why we have a gold tassel around these flags in here. There's a reason why your names are in all caps on your driver's license. And there's a reason why people like me and you and all the rest of you are here on a work night fighting this. Because this system has a satanic influence to it that is very deep and it's very powerful. And the only solution to cure this problem is the power of Jesus Christ and the power of the Holy Spirit of God.
Yes.
In the book of Ephesians, in the 6th chapter, it talks about the forces of spiritual wickedness in high places. This is not about anti-bullying at all, ladies and gentlemen. My mom used to drop me off at 3:30 in the morning at the Balboa Pier when I was 12 years old to go fishing. And I was raised by farm workers out there fishing, and I used to fill their buckets with fish because they didn't have the money to buy the rods, and I had a paper route. And I want to tell you something. None of those men were on Viagra looking at me like a sex object. And I want to tell you, our society has
I appreciate that.
and you need to stop being a part of
I'm so
it.
glad. There. No, that's not mine. My card isn't here. It's not here.
It's not here?
It's not there.
Hi, I'm
That's it.
actually not a parent, but I am a concerned citizen, and as a millennial, since that seems to be a trending thing, and since
Thank you.
apparently
I
being
like
brown is giving me more street cred, I'm just gonna tell you right now, that what you guys are, first of all, I'm just glad actually that this is even being held as a public forum, that we can actually debate it and actually come against it. And I noticed that there is a huge mob of kids and transgendered just protesting, and I noticed that it was clearly just a superficial thing. They just want the attention. They're not in here sitting down and actually voicing their opinions. And you guys, I completely agree with Joe. I agree with a lot of the things that a lot of people aren't aware of or don't want to talk about, and that is that there is a satanic agenda. And I am sick and tired of just watching our everything be infiltrated. And as elected officials, I really pray and I hope that you guys, whatever happens behind closed doors, we can all only guess, God knows, what happens with these different elected officials who pass these laws that are completely inappropriate and shocking and
Perverse.
it's satanic. And maybe that sounds odd to some of you that don't believe in God, but I'm going to say that whether or not you believe in God or in Jesus, there is clearly at the highest levels, even if you're an atheist, it is Luciferian. And this agenda is very clear. You know, there's a lot of talk about bullying, and to me that's just an emotional distraction from the fact that parents are not being told about things that they can't opt their kids out of because it's bullying to say that transgenderism is wrong or whatever. But holy crap, like, how is this even a topic? How are we even having this conversation?
Yes.
The fact that we,
This is how bad it's gotten.
I don't even have kids, and I can see how incredibly sick and wrong it is. And I completely agree. This is all an agenda to lower the age of consent and to try to act like kids actually have the ability to think and understand what sexuality is. They don't. There are 3-year-olds that want to grow up to be a dinosaur. You know, like, this is just insane. So, thank you.
Card that I have is Arthur Schreiber.
Shopper?
Shopper.
Okay. Everybody gets it wrong the first time.
Hey, Arthur.
All right. Yes, my name is Arthur Shopper. I am here in my capacity as the organization director for Mass Resistance. We are the international pro-family group that makes a difference. We have chapters all over the country, all over the world. We are fighting this scourge in Chile, in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, and soon to be South Africa. Orange County parents, you are not alone. I do want to say, however, I think tongue in cheek, I am pro-LGBT. I am pro-life. I am pro-God, I am pro-Bible, and I am pro-truth. And the fact is, with all this talk about inclusion, we seem to have forgotten something: truth and error. And I don't want truth and error mixed together as they could be the same and coincide. I'm going to say some very pithy truths that seem to alarm people. Transgenderism is a mental disorder, okay? It's not a civil right. There's something wrong with that person. That's not hatred. That's speaking the truth. And as a child, when I did bad things, I wanted my parents to tell me the truth so I didn't harm myself further. That's the whole point of an education. Homosexuality, this is an emotional disorder. Ms. Haynes, your commentary is excellent, and I thank you that you have the courage to say this. We need to hear these commentaries further. You're not born gay. There's no evidence for this. Transgenderism is not something to tolerate, accommodate, or enable. Furthermore, all this talk about bullying, please, look, I got picked on as a kid. You fight back. You stand up and you speak the truth. I get bullied every day being a Trump supporter, but I don't cry about it. I stand up and fight back. I had my hat stolen in Berkeley. I'm not going to stop fighting for freedom of speech. The biggest bullies are the LGBT bullies. And I'm fed up, and we're fighting back. That's what you do. And that's not hatred, to speak the truth on that matter. Another thing, on my shirt, it says, taking back the rainbow. That's what we're doing. Let's have a lesson plan on that. And last thing, let me finish really quick. In Torrance, we have a large Japanese community. Why don't we teach Boys' Day and Girls' Day just like they do in Japan? I want to pass this out to you, and I want to say, I'm glad I won't have to complain to the DA because you gave us public comment. I made the request, and you all asked for it, and you got it. We, the people, have the power. Thank you. I'll have you pass it. Thank you.
Okay. Kim, there was someone who didn't check in with me. We have another speaker, Rosemarie Abita.
Oh, Rosie.
Hey, thank you, Arthur.
I'll come fast, I know you're all tired.
Good job.
Lily wasn't planning to speak today. I'm a mother of 5 children who grew up in public schools. I was school board member in Santa Ana for 17 years, and I've spent the last 20 years running nonprofits to serve inner city kids, so I'm familiar with a lot of the vulnerable children in our community. I really liked your statement about, okay, what's after the hearing, what's the action, and also yours about transparency. And so that prompted me to come speak because I think that, you know, there was an opinion circulated by the board that their parents can't opt out. And I know somebody mentioned it's confusing whether parents can or cannot opt out. If there's one thing that could be done is that we could bring clarity to that. And the school districts need to know whether they can have an opt-out policy. And so I recommend that if you feel you have the power to decide something, and I know you're supposed to guide the districts with some of these state policies. If you feel parents should opt out, I think you should either state, yes, you can under this law, and if Or you can create your own policy in your own district to opt out, but that you should give transparency and clarity to that. And that would be minimum, but that's not enough. Because now that you've heard, you've seen all these examples of this curriculum, the curriculums that are being recommended are not medically accurate, and they promote risky behaviors. Now, you have to decide, do you believe that or not? If you believe the children are being taught lies or things that aren't correct, and they're being encouraged to do things that are harmful to them, I think you have a duty and a responsibility as an educational leader to say, no, to identify transparency, identify which curriculums are not medically accurate and are risky. And you have this fine panel who study these issues who can help you create that list. Oh, the elected official. I know I don't have nothing.
Your time is up.
I know. All right, the third thing is if districts have discretion, you should let them know they have a discretion not to even teach sex ed or to teach and emphasize one of the elements or not.
Thank you,
Please give clarity, thank you.
Yay.
For everybody out there, Rosie and I have been dear friends. She is actually my mentor. She's the one who taught me, not that I know a whole lot now, but she is the queen. She is my mentor and good friend. Okay.
Courageous leadership.
So as we are done here, we're at the point where I'm making the motion to leave, and I will thank you. Good night. May God bless you and have a safe journey.
Yay! All right, folks, thanks for joining. Share this all over. Take care.